Welcome to Fanfiction Hub. Please like, subscribe, and hit that notification button for more. We bring quality fanfiction for your enjoyment and hope to better the contents in the future. Now please enjoy. Alas, this time Gixian Liu's disciples didn't participate. When passing by the rostrum, Mu Yang heard such a sigh. There is no way. It is said that teacher Wu Tian has not accepted disciples for many years, another person said. Mu Yang walked over from the side, his ears pricked up, and he thought to himself, there are still 50 years before the plot begins. At this time, Immortal Turtle should have accepted Sun Wufan as his apprentice, and did not let Sun Wufan be to participate in the world's #1 martial arts meeting. I think it is not necessary. Sun Wufan is the most outstanding disciple of the Turtle Immortal, and his final achievement is even above the Turtle Immortal. It is now 50 years before the plot, and the young Sun Wuhan is definitely in the golden period of rapid growth. I am afraid that he is not far from leading the way. It would not make sense for him to participate in the world's #1 martial arts. Mayang, the game is about to start. We must go all out later and don't underestimate any opponents. Sith exhorted. Mayang only fought beasts in the primitive mountain range before, and he had no experience of fighting against people. Afraid that Mayang would not be able to get used to it for a while, he patiently instructed him. Don't worry, Uncle Sith. Mu Yang nodded earnestly and solemnly, then tied the belt around his waist as if he was going all out. On the rostrum, the head of Maple Leaf Stream began to explain the rules of the game, and the audience immediately burst into warm applause. After the applause was over, a deafening gong sounded and the game officially started. Mu Yang was below, constantly scanning the seniors above with the energy detector. 105, 110, 98, 103, 118. These are all big names. Apart from those old seniors, the younger ones are much weaker. Mu Yang didn't test it, but the best ones should only have 60 or 70 combat strength, which is a certain gap with him. Soon the game begins. According to the lottery sequence, the disciples of the major schools are divided into 8 major divisions to compete for hegemony, and each division decides one of the most powerful players to enter the quarterfinals. There is no prior strength test, and there is no so-called resurrection mechanism. The whole process is a tough competition of strength, except that the last 8 quarterfinals were divided into 8 divisions as seed players. Everything was so simple and rude. Mayang's blood is boiling. This is the game he wants. Standing in the candidate area, he could already feel the agitation in his heart. This kind of emotion is even comparable to when he took the college entrance examination that year. On the arena, the first competition in different divisions has begun. The disciples of the major schools are competing to fight, and some unlucky players have been eliminated because they encountered opponents with disparate strengths. They can only sigh. Such a result also caused the audience to sigh for a while, but luck is also a part of strength. All those present were powerful martial artists. After a little regret for those players with good strength, they quickly turned their attention to the next game, middle. At this time, Mu Yang was also paying attention to the game on stage. Although the movements of these martial arts practitioners on the stage were fast and violent, in his eyes, they seemed to slow down the camera. Every move was not only slow but also full of loopholes. This level also came to participate in the world's first martial arts club. Mu Yang felt that if it were him, he could beat them down with just a wave of his fists. This was already a clear gap. At this moment, Mu Yang concluded that he could definitely achieve good results in this competition. Player number 241, please come to the ring number 13, the staff shouted loudly. It's my turn to play. Mu Yang nodded lightly. A cold light flashed in his eyes and then walked to the target arena, jumped lightly, and landed on the arena very lightly. At this time, the Sith shouted from the audience, Mayang, rest assured, don't put too much pressure on him. I know. Throwing a confident smile at Sith, Mu Yang looked at his opponent. Opposite him is a young man who is not very burly, wearing a blue martial arts uniform. Mu Yang smiled when he saw him. I met a disciple of Maple Leaf in the first game. Oh, then let me see. Let's see how strong are the disciples of the great school. Mayang got serious. He didn't use the energy detector to test but rely on his own feeling. By doing this, he is exercising his chi perception ability. Maple Leaf Stream Kane. The Maple Leaf Stream disciple across from him folded his hands and bowed slightly politely. Mayang returned the salute, Tiangxinliu Mayang. Immediately, the two of them took a stance and slightly estimated the strength of the opponent. In the end, it was the Maple Leaf disciple named Kane who took the lead in attacking. Mu Yang's eyes moved slightly, and the aura of the whole person changed accordingly, and his eyes kept turning with the opponent's movements. Because it was the first time to participate in an official competition, Mu Yang did not intend to keep his hands from the beginning. When the opponent's fists and feet were about to touch him, Mu Yang let out a secret cry. His body swayed and then swayed with his body, and unexpectedly moved behind Kane. Facts have proved that the gap between this player named Kane and Mu Yang is still very large. With his feet changing his pace, Mu Yang has already found the opportunity. So fast, when did you come behind me? Facing the sudden appearance of Mu Yang, Kane broke out in a cold sweat, but he was a disciple of the big school. Kane obviously had a good foundation. After fighting back and forth for several rounds, Mu Yang had a rough idea of the opponent's level. Then speed up the rhythm to end this game, so Mu Yang grinned, his mind moved, and the speed on his hands suddenly increased a bit. Kane didn't expect Mu Yang's movements to be so fast. His body couldn't help but sluggish, and the simple attack had already made him at a disadvantage, so he had to temporarily avoid the edge and dodge to the side. Bang! Mu Yang's fist slammed heavily on the ground, making a muffled bang. The stone slabs of the martial arts platform were slightly loosened, and several cracks were cracked. When Kane saw Mu Yang's sudden power, he kept retreating while he was shocked, and an irresistible momentum rushed towards his face. Whoops! A blurry shadow suddenly passed in front of Kane's eyes. At this time, Kane really couldn't escape and could only resist with his hands clasped together. Boom! Huge pressure fell on him. Kane swayed and slipped out a distance of 7 or 8 meters. His arms felt numb and Kane smiled bitterly, making a decision in his heart. Wait a minute, I'll admit defeat in this game. When another attack from Mayang was about to come, Kane hurriedly called to stop, and after that, Kane walked off the ring with a look of regret. In this game, Mu Yang, player number 241, won. Seeing one player voluntarily conceded and walked out of the ring, the on-site staff immediately raised the flag and announced loudly. Mu Yang, who was still in the ring, naturally won the match. Outside the arena, after Kane took the initiative to step down from the ring, the audience watching the match in the ring 13 couldn't help but look surprised. Kane of Maple Leaf Stream actually lost. It seems that the player named Mayang needs to pay attention. The game didn't last long, but that's why it showed the gap between the two. During the whole process, Mayang pressed Kane to fight. In a limited number of attacks, Kane failed to get any benefit from Mayang. The gap seems to be a bit big. The wonderful performance also made the audience and other contestants remember. There lived the player named Mayang. His strength cannot be underestimated. And people who knew Kane were even more surprised when they got the news Kane was eliminated so quickly. They thought he would survive at least a few games, but he didn't expect to lose at the very beginning. The players who witnessed this match cast their solemn glances at Mayang and added a name to the list of things they need to pay attention to. Senior brother Kane, it's really a pity. A disciple came up, and when he saw Kane's face turning pale, senior brother, don't worry. Kane waved his hand and said, it's okay, just rest for a while. The strength of that punch just now was really uncomfortable. Is that person actually so powerful? That junior brother was both stunned and felt sorry for senior brother Kane. You must know that senior brother Kane's strength is absolutely outstanding among so many disciples of Maple Leaf Flow. Even he can't take a punch from the other party. Is the disciple even stronger? Don't be careless, the real strength of the other party is probably more powerful than we think. Kane said with a serious face. Mu Yang's strength can only be known if he has really fought each other. In the battle just now, the opponent has definitely not used the strongest means. Maybe this year's #1 martial arts club will come out as a dark horse. Tian Xinliu, why haven't you heard of it before? At the same time, he was also very frustrated and annoyed at his own luck. But in any case, under the absolute strength gap, he lost convincingly. On the other hand, Mayang also returned to the rest area after finishing the game and then played several games in succession. The result was obvious: Mayang won all of them. This also made other players in the same division feel more threatened and paid more attention to it. Pong, the attack was launched as fast as lightning, and the person on the opposite side flew out of the field. In another match, Mayang defeated an elite disciple of a martial arts dojo, and then returned to the arena very dashingly. Uncle Sith, I roughly know the level of the martial arts club. Sith's face was a little red, and he was also very surprised. Good job, actually defeated those elite disciples of the big school. Keep it up and strive for better results. Before, Sith was very optimistic about Mayang, thinking that he had the hope of winning the top 8, but in fact, entering the top 8 is just a vision or a goal, and it is not certain whether it can be achieved. But now, with Mayang's current performance, the top 8 spots can basically be locked. As long as he can get an inch, he is now looking forward to Mayang to achieve better results. If he can win the championship, it will definitely shock the entire martial arts world. I've been thinking about it far away and there's no shadow of it, but I still can't help thinking about it in my heart. If senior brother Isafar knew about Mu Yang's performance at the martial arts conference, he would definitely be very happy. Mu Yang smiled at Sith, and he was very sure in his heart that if the older generation of martial artists didn't play, there would be few among the new generation who could be his opponents. The competition was in full swing. On the second floor of the Budo Hall, a female elder of Kyanheliu said, "The number of participants in this edition of the Budo Club is the same as in the previous editions, but a lot of elites have emerged." Hahaha, Elder Nali, I heard that you have a good seedling in the younger generation of Kyanheliu. The head of Maple Leaf Liu smiled and then pointed to the competition arena on the side. It's the one on the number 2 arena. That little girl. Elder Nally smiled and said happily, "Lissy is indeed a good seedling, but I think your Arlo of Maple Leaf Flow is also very good. Vote for me with Peach and reciprocate with Lee," staged a realistic version of business mutual praise. These words made Sect Master Feng Liu very comfortable and he nodded very usefully. He turned his head to look at Master Zirin of Duelin Temple, but saw that the other party had his eyes half closed, sitting there with his eyes closed and resting. "It's still Master Zirin's view," the head of Maple Leaf Liu chuckled. "That's because the Grandmaster is sure of winning," Elder Nally said. At this moment, there was a burst of exclamations from the other side of the martial arts field. Several seniors looked for the reputation, but saw a young man in a white martial arts uniform pressing a monk on a slate-paved arena. Attacked, and that monk was an elite disciple of Dalin Monastery. At this time, Master Zirin opened his eyes, and his face no longer had the calmness that he had before. "Who is that young man in white robe? He could beat Wu Ting." The accompanying staff panicked, hurriedly flipped through the roster, found the corresponding number and said that person's name is Mayang and he comes from a sect called Tianxin Liu. "Tianxin Liu, I seem to have heard of it somewhere." Master Zirin frowned, his gray beard twitched, but he never remembered it. On the side, Elder Nali said, "This Tianxin Liu seems to be a very old school, but it has never been famous." It turned out to be from an ancient school. There are indeed many talented people in this world. This time, Wu Ting has met his opponent. Master Zirin lowered his head, not knowing what he was thinking, and suddenly said with a smile, "No matter how infamous the ancient school is, it must have its merits to be able to inherit such a long time. It seems that Wu Ting did not come in vain this time." Master Zirin actually looked at the results of the competition very openly. Winning or losing is not important. Today's Duelin Temple no longer needs these icing on the cake. He only hopes that after this competition his disciples can grow. It is easy to fight, but a good opponent is not easy. The others guessed Master Zirin's mind and nodded. "Hey, that disciple of mine, Kane, he actually lost in that person's hands." The head of Maple Leaf Liu flipped through the tournament chart so far and was surprised to find that Mayang had beaten Kane. Although Kane is not the number 1 seed of Maple Leaf Stream, he is also a disciple who is very much appreciated by the leader of Maple Leaf Stream. He thought that his opponent would be Wu Ting from the same competition area, but unexpectedly he has already been eliminated. Looks like we need to pay attention to that young man named Mu Yang. Several seniors began to take heart and teased each other. Young martial artists continue to emerge and the martial arts world will become more and more prosperous. These seniors are naturally happy to see this. On the stand on the second floor of the Budokan, the head of Maple Leaf Liu and others continued to communicate. Changes in the arena are rapid. At this time, both Mayang and the disciple of Duolin Temple called Wu Ting had burst out with great power. I saw that the two sides were constantly attacking, and blurred afterimages gradually appeared on the arena, and many actions had gone beyond ordinary the limit of what the human eye can see. How? Mayang and Wu Ting launched a counterattack, with their palms hitting each other making a loud bang. Amazing, Mu Yang gasped slightly and his body couldn't help but retreat a few steps. This was the first opponent he had encountered since the competition with the same strength as himself. The disciples of Duolin Temple are indeed not to be underestimated. Looks like a trick is coming. Mu Yang grinned and immediately stepped on the ground, stopping his step back, and the slate under his feet shattered into meandering cracks. After that, the body suddenly bounced, and the explosive force penetrated from the soles of the feet, causing the shattered stones to bounce up and splash out in all directions. Mu Yang's body popped out quickly, as if a cannonball swooped in. Heavenly Heart Qigong. Mu Yang's eyes narrowed slightly, his right hand was raised, his fingers turned into swords, and a terrifying aura emerged from his body. As soon as he finished speaking, a cold light flashed between his bright eyes, and a dazzling blue light was generated between his fingers. Hula-la, straight Qigong waves shot out like lasers, surrounded by a few whirlwinds like a head from ancient times. The wild beast charged towards Wu Ting with a ferocious and bloodthirsty aura. Feeling the vigorous aura that suddenly erupted from Mu Yang's body, as well as the powerful Qigong wave, Elder Maple Leaf Liu and the others stood up suddenly, with expressions of disbelief on their faces. This is a Qigong wave, and it's not far from the martial arts of the older generation. It's amazing, I didn't expect to reach such a state at such a young age. Several seniors in the martial arts world looked at the scene in shock and couldn't help but exclaimed. Huh, Mayang's Qigong is already so strong. Sis rubbed his eyes in disbelief. Tiangxin Qigong, even he couldn't release it at will, but Mayang actually used it during the competition. Seeing his skill with ease, he looked a little envious. At this time, Sith realized that the strength of his nephew might have surpassed him. At the same time, the audience at the scene was all boiling. No, is that right? He used a Qigong wave. A player who can use Qigong waves and his opponent is Wu Ting. The outcome is really hard to predict. Whether it was the audience or the players, they all watched with wide eyes. Eh? You have to be careful, Mu Yang shouted at Wu Ting across the air. At this time, Mu Yang's breath rose again and the powerful aura rolled over, and the icy aura even made people lose their resistance. Zwish. In the face of Mayang's extremely powerful attack, even the elite disciples of Duolin Temple couldn't help but change their faces, but Mayang's attack was already in sight, and the difference between the masters could decide the outcome. At this time, Wu Ting had already losing the first opportunity. Hasty response is the only way to defeat. Pong! The huge attack power of the Qigong wave fell on Wu Ting. His face turned pale, his body flew like a kite with a broken string, and he fell heavily outside the ring. Tiangxin Liu Mayang won and entered the quarterfinals. As the dust settled with a whistle, Mayang defeated the seed players of Duolin Temple with a powerful attitude and advanced to the quarterfinals. Agreed, Mu Yang bowed with a calm expression. That Wu Ting wiped off the blood stains from the corners of his mouth and folded his hands in return. Wu Ting actually lost. Qian Heliu Elder Nali clicked his tongue and said silently. It's normal, with the vigor that he showed just now, it may take a few years to reach our realm. Maybe he's so young. Alas, the younger generation has come out in large numbers, and this failure is also a good thing for Wu Ting. Master Ziyuan recited the scriptures silently. Kane and Wu Ting both lost to that young man. I wonder how much chance Arlo and Liz can win, the head of Maple Leaf asked with interest. I don't have much hope. Elder Nelly shook his head. Lissy is not that person's opponent. Among the new talents of the major schools, Wu Ting of Duolin Temple is one of the best. Even he has lost to the opponent. I am afraid that others have little hope of winning. The head of Maple Leaf Liu nodded. Yes, it is very rare in today's martial arts world to be able to release powerful Qigong waves at a young age. At this moment, he has roughly determined the champion of this martial arts conference, and that is Mu Yang. Hahaha, it's amazing, Mayang. If you let senior brother Asaf know that you defeated the elite disciples of Duolin Temple, he will definitely come over excitedly. But unfortunately, Dakingshan is a long way from Maple Leaf Island, so senior brother Asaf has no chance to see it. You swept the scene all over the place. As soon as Mu Yang stepped down from the stage, Sith came over with a look of excitement and praised Mu Yang. Mayang smiled humbly. Uncle Sis, I just made it to the quarterfinals. The game isn't over yet. Sith shook his head again and again. It's different, it's different. Entering the quarterfinals and defeating Wu Ting are completely two concepts. Originally, in Sith's heart, as long as Mayang can get the 8th place in the world's #1 martial arts association, he has already completed the task. To know so many genres, how many can win the top 8, it has been very satisfying. But judging from the current performance, it seems that he will not stop there. Although they are both in the top 8, the meaning is completely different. You must know that Wu Ting is not only an elite disciple of Duolin Temple, but also a popular candidate for the championship of the #1 martial arts tournament in the world. If Mu Yang can defeat him, does he have a chance to win the championship? If Mu Yang wins the championship, then Tian Xinliu can be regarded as a big show. Even now, even if Mayang immediately admits defeat and does not participate in the follow-up competition, Sith, who has seen the power of Mayang's Qigong waves, knows that Mayang's name must have been launched through this conference, and the entire martial arts world has the ability to release Qigong waves. There are only a few martial Taoists, and Mu Yang is one of them, which is full of glory. The next few games don't need to be too stressful. Take it easy anyway. The top 8 spots have been locked, and every next win is an improvement. Sis excitedly patted Mu Yang's shoulder, and then saw Mu Yang's face a little pale. He said with concern, "You just released Qigong waves, can your body take it?" Mayang shook his head, indicating that it was okay. "My body doesn't matter, just rest for a while." "Then you have a good rest." Sith nodded and said no more, staying aside to let him rest in peace. While Mayang was sitting and recuperating, battles between dragons and tigers were still being staged on the other arenas. The 315 contestants from all over the world were all motivated and vying for the chance to qualify. Crackling, an indistinct afterimage flickered on the ring. Accompanied by the shouting of the players from time to time, several large and small holes suddenly appeared on the ground, and the broken stones splashed around, rubbing the ground and bursting sparks. Kyanheliu Lissy won and entered the quarterfinals. Maple Leaf Stream Arlo won and entered the quarterfinals. Cross Fist Barney wins and enters the quarterfinals. West Ply Village Jira won and entered the quarterfinals. As the competition continued, the top 8 places were created one after another. Together with Mu Yang, the 8 strongest players in this conference have all been decided. Mu Yang glanced at the list and noticed that the top 8 players, except for himself and a player named Jai Luo from Pulai Village, most of the other 6 were disciples of the big school. I have to admit that the major schools do have a hand in cultivating disciples. It is no wonder that after these major schools chose to hide from the world, the level of martial arts on the earth suddenly dropped a notch. After a short rest, after all the results were verified as valid, with the sound of the gong sounded again, today's schedule is over. The quarterfinals are scheduled for the next day, with an evening break. When Mayang and Sith returned to the hotel, they realized that they had become celebrities. Accompanied by the leading teacher, many disciples from the middle and small schools came forward to greet him. With that enthusiastic attitude, Mayang felt the enthusiasm of this world for the first time. "Haha, you young people talk on your own, I won't join." Sis laughed and went to drink with the teachers who led the team from other genres with a contented face. Mu Yang, who stayed behind, seemed rather helpless, but it was good to take this opportunity to meet some friends. Just like the Monkey King in the original book, didn't he meet a large group of companions through the world's #1 martial arts club? People are from unfamiliar to gradually familiar. In a class, it may not be easy for a poor student to strike up a conversation with an outstanding student, but an outstanding student takes the initiative to lower his body and strike up a conversation with an inferior student, and the effect is absolutely different. This is the same as the goddess chasing boys. But what Mu Yang didn't expect was that when he was chatting happily with a group of poor students, Wu Ting, an uninvited guest, actually joined in. Wu Ting's figure is relatively burly, somewhat like Jura, one of the 10 great sage wizards in fairy tale, but he is younger and more beautiful than Jura. The two hit it off at first sight and found that each other's values and knowledge of martial arts were surprisingly in tune. If it is not clear whether the monk of Duolin Temple can drink alcohol, Mayang wants to have a drink with him. Time is short, night is like cold water. In the end, Mayang still didn't drink and talked with Wu Ting until late at night and fell back to sleep after returning to the room. Early the next morning, the world's #1 martial arts club officially opened the quarterfinals. If the previous 8 competitions are just appetizers, then the quarterfinals are the core of gathering the essence of the best martial arts club in the world. Due to the importance attached to each match of the quarterfinals, from the quarterfinals, everyone moved to the big arena in unison, and each match was no longer played in parallel. Through the on-site drawing of lots, the opponents and the order of the competition are decided, which is the same as the later generations. After Mayang drew lots, he came to the stand of the contestant area. This stand was specially prepared for the contestants of the quarterfinals and their divisions and had a broader vision. It starts with Liz from Chizuru versus Barney from the cross-fist genre. This is a close match and it is very entertaining. Barney of the cross-boxing genre is a sturdy man with a height of 1.8 meters. He is good at cross-boxing. Kyan Heliu's Liz is a small and exquisite beauty, less than 1.6 meters tall, soft and agile, long hair fluttering, good at dodging and inch strength. The two were rigid and soft, one tall and the other petite, staged a realistic Beauty and Beast, and everyone in the audience cheered. Mayang and Sith watched carefully in the audience, and when they commented, they didn't forget to think seriously. If it was themselves, how should I deal with it? Mu Yang took it very seriously. Of course, it wasn't because of the beauty of the Lissy contestant. In fact, she was quite beautiful, but Mu Yang's focus was not on this aspect. Martial Taoists need to constantly forge ahead. Any complacency or laxity may make oneself stagnant or even lag behind others. Compared with other people on Earth, Mayang is more aware of how terrifying this world is. In the universe, there are not a few ruthless characters who destroy the sky and destroy the Earth and even use planets as marbles. The potential of Earth people is not outstanding. If they don't work hard to catch up, they will really only be slaughtered in the future. This point, only when you enter the world of Dragon Ball personally, can you realize that it is definitely not as interesting as you see on TV or CDs. In fact, if a person lives on a planet that may be destroyed at any time and he knows this, then he can't be interesting, and some may only have a heavy pressure and then practice more vigorously. There is nothing more whiplash than a life-threatening crisis. The match between Liz and Barney lasted for more than 20 minutes. This spectatorial debut gave a good start to the quarterfinals and attracted cheers from the audience. In the end, Liz won by a narrow advantage, but Barney also received applause from the audience. One game after another, it was Mayang's turn to play again. His opponent is Jai Luo from Ordinary Mountain Village. This is a dark-skinned young man. He may not be older than Mayang. It is said that he has not received formal martial arts instruction, but he can reach the top 8 of the world's largest martial arts club. The strength is not weak. After taking the stage, Mu Yang glanced at each other earnestly. He didn't receive formal guidance, but he was able to enter the quarterfinals by exploring on his own. It seems that his talent is very good. This Gyroud may be an Archibald figure. In fact, since the opponent was drawn by lottery, others felt that Mayang's luck was good. Gillo was the least optimistic among the top 8 players, and the game was basically won. Game start. As the whistle sounded at the beginning, Mu Yang and the opposite Jai Luo all looked straight, and each assumed a posture of attack. This was a game without much suspense. Ma Yang's combat power was much higher than Jiluo's. It didn't take long for Jiluo to fall behind in Ma Yang's offensive and finally lost. "Thank you, this game has taught me a lot." After the game, Gillo's sincere voice came to his ears. Ma Yang looked at Jai Luo unexpectedly, and his affection for him suddenly increased greatly. "No thanks, if you can receive formal guidance you can become stronger. Are you interested in joining a certain big martial arts school?" Jai Luo shook his head and said, "No, at least I don't need it now. I want to work hard with my own efforts and I don't want to be bound by the framework of my predecessors." Mu Yang was startled when he heard the words and looked at him differently. This Jilo seems to be a person like himself and he has his own pursuits. But without the guidance of the predecessors, there will be more chances to enter the misunderstanding, and eventually you may be able to get out of the misunderstanding, but it will waste a lot of time. A good teacher can make people avoid many detours, and the experience of predecessors is also worth learning. But then again, experience is something that also depends on the person. If you encounter a teacher with a low level, then experience is a harmful thing and it will bring you deeper into mistakes. Seeing the firm belief in Jai Luo's eyes, Mu Yang nodded, jumped off the ring and said nothing more. Sith watched from the edge of the ring with admiration on his face. "This Jilo is a good seedling in martial arts. Although I don't quite agree with his point of view, this persistence deserves our respect." "Yes, but this is a path destined to be difficult." Mu Yang also sighed, but he also brought this sentence to himself in his heart. According to the memory brought by his previous life, Ma Yang can ensure that he will not take too many detours in the early stage of cultivation, but once it reaches the later stage, the level of the earth will not be able to keep up with his own development. At that time, he may want to like Jilo. He has carved out a path with his own understanding. That is also a path destined to be difficult. Jai Luo's choice made Mu Yang feel a little emotional, but then he shook his head, cast aside this sentimental emotion and focused his attention on the next game. The next game is Maple Leafs Arlo against Four-Body Booker. Ma Yang was very concerned about this game because the name Sishin Liu made him feel a little familiar, and he didn't wake up until the player named Booker used the skill of the genre in public to change to four. It's actually a four-body fist. No wonder the name is so familiar. It turns out that these four-body fists are the skills used by Tianjin Fan in the original book in the 23rd World #1 Martial Arts Club. It's amazing, it turned into four all of a sudden. Now that Arlo's pressure has become very great, seeing this unexpected trick, Sith's eyes were about to pop out. Perhaps four-body boxing may be a killer for ordinary martial artists, but it is not necessarily used to deal with masters. This trick has a fatal weakness. Looking at the two people on the field fighting each other, Mu Yang said lightly. Sith was stunned for a moment and asked in surprise, "What weaknesses do you say you have?" Mu Yang chuckled and said, "If everyone's level is relatively low, then it is easy for four people to besiege one person to gain an advantage, because although everyone's speed is different, it will not be unacceptable. Taking care of one thing and losing another, you hit the opponent's move. But if the same move is used to deal with a high-level martial artist, the effect may not be." You mean dividing a person's strength into four parts is not just a weakness such as a decrease in strength. No matter how good the skills are, it is useless to hit the enemy. Sith fell silent after listening. Ma Yang nodded. "Well, speed and strength have different emphasis at different stages. The duel between masters is in the slightest. Look at Uncle Sis that Arlo is going to fight back." After Mu Yang finished speaking, he looked at the ring again and sure enough there, Arlo had recovered from the siege of the four Bookers and noticed the opponent's weakness. "That Booker's speed has slowed down," Sith was surprised. "That's it," Mu Yang shrugged. "You saw it all at once." Sith's eyes widened. Yeah, nodding lightly, Mu Yang didn't say that because he had read the original book. He knew the weakness of Sishin Fist in advance. His Sith took a deep breath. When did Mu Yang have such good eyesight and judgment? This is not as simple as just seeing the weaknesses of the tricks, but the key point is the change of fighting concepts between different levels. With the continuous flow of young heroes such as Mu Yang, Jai Luo, and Arlo, Sith suddenly wondered if he was old.
Eh?
In the ring, the game continued, and sure enough, Arlo had mastered the rhythm of the battle, and there was not much suspense from winning the game. After a while, with his opponent Booker exhausted, Arlo seized the opportunity and won the game. At this time, the top four had already been decided, namely Lissy, Mayang, Arlo, and a disciple from a major school. After a short break, the semifinals will be played. In the following games, Mu Yang has always been calm. In fact, at this time, the head of Maple Leaf Liu and the elder Ali of Cayenne Liu already knew who the champion would be. Lo also advanced to the final in the following game. The last game is over and the championship and runner-up will be announced soon, the head of Maple Leaf Liu said with a light smile. There is already a shadow of who wins and who loses. I'm optimistic about the player named Mu Yang, Elder Nolly said with a smile. This is not to contradict the head of Maple Leaf Flow, but it is true that Mu Yang has a bigger chance of winning. At this time, Master Zirin also plucked the rosary and said softly, "If there is no accident, the champion will be Mayang's." I think so. Mayang, who is Tiangxin Liu, will win. Others have roughly the same opinion because Mu Yang has done a great job in the competition for the quarterfinals. There are only a handful of people in the younger generation who can use Qigong waves. It's really hard for anyone to beat it. Seeing that no one is optimistic about his disciple, the head of Maple Leaf Liu trembled and he was angry. He said that he had a good home field advantage. Why did no one consider this aspect? But thinking of the previous game, the head of Maple Leaf Liu couldn't help shaking his head. Since everyone has this opinion, let's watch it. Tiangxin has such a talented person, and the entire martial arts world, except for the legendary turtle Immortal Liu and Zion Liu, I am afraid that no one among his peers can defeat him. Wait and see. Calm your mind, since the opponent is too good, it is not a shame to lose. Anyway, it's not without a back. Looking at other genres. The corner of the mouth of the head of Maple Leaf Stream hung a smile. Not far from the stand, Sith also became nervous at this time. The whispers of the people around him made him ecstatic. His face flushed and he shouted excitedly, "Come on Mayang, go all out. Please play Mayang and Arlo in the finals." As soon as the staff's voice fell, Mu Yang and Arlo under the stage had a straight face, jumped onto the ring with a light leap, and then looked at each other in front of everyone's eyes. This is the most exciting moment of this martial arts meeting, and there seems to be a stalemate confrontation in the air. At this time, both the contestants and the teachers leading the team all had serious expressions and stared at them seriously. Game start. Following the referee's order, the players on both sides stretched their bodies and every muscle on their bodies trembled. With a bang, Mu Yang took the lead and instantly disappeared into an afterimage from everyone's sight. When it reappeared, the crackling sound of fierce fighting began to be heard incessantly. 3 days later, on the cruise ship at the ferry port, Sith was sitting on the case and writing a book, writing the results of the world's #1 martial arts association in a letter and sending it back to the location of the Dakingshan sect. The tip of the pen dropped, and when he wrote the final result of the game, Sith couldn't contain his excitement. In the 11th World's #1 martial arts club, the champion was unexpectedly not an elite disciple from a famous school, but a dark horse that everyone had never heard of before, Mayang from Tiangxin Liu. Although the older generation of martial arts practitioners did not participate in the competition, this champion contains a certain amount of moisture. But in one fell swoop, it is certain that he will become the leader of the younger generation, and Mu Yang has officially shown his prominence in the martial arts world. Recommend a book. Beautiful Comics begins with Superman. Leah traveled to the United States, became a high school student in Kansas, and accidentally acquired the friendship system. The so-called friendship system is to obtain a skill card with the corresponding ability of the other party by improving the friendship value with the friend. I got the Kryptonian blood from Superman and the Speed Force from the Flash. From Batman, why is the superpower from the Master rich? From Thor is a hammer. I'm not targeting anyone, everyone here is, all my brothers. According to the author, the front of the book is the DC world and the back is Marvel, a parallel universe. If you like this, you can go check it out. Folding the letter and sealing the opening with glue, Sith carefully placed the letter into the mailbox. The post office has a dedicated line, and in about 7 or 8 days the letter will appear in the hands of Isaver. After all this was done, the Sith came out of the room and the ferry was about to dock. Passing by the restaurant, I saw Mu Yang eating inside and looked at the sky that was gradually darkening. It seemed that it was about to rain. Ma Yang, after the ferry docks, are you going back to Dakingshan with me, or are you going to travel alone? Sith sat next to Mu Yang and ordered some snacks casually. Let's travel outside for a while. I plan to take advantage of this spare time to see the outside world before going back. This competition has given me a deep insight and there is room for improvement in many areas. Mu Yang put down his chopsticks and said it very directly, but Sith's face had such an expression as expected. He nodded and said, well, it's good to gain knowledge outside. To be honest, your kung fu is already very good. Compared with us, the only difference is your experience. It's good for you to see the differences outside. Speaking of this, Sistan paused, smiled, and said, you have grown up, you can handle these things yourself. We can't teach you anything about specific cultivation. Judging from the results of this world's #1 martial arts meeting, Mu Yang's performance was beyond his expectations. The only thing missing was the improvement in combat skills. Perhaps because of his lack of combat experience, Mu Yang showed his performance when dealing with opponents. It's still a bit messy. Obviously it can be easier to win, but it still takes a lot of work. If it is not because the strength exceeds the opponent, the final victory or defeat is still difficult to say. In low-level battles, the importance of skills is self-evident. Even in high-level battles with high strength in the later stage, combat skills also play an important role. Neither the Sith nor Isafer could teach him, but he had to figure it out on his own. All this requires practice. Yeah, Mu Yang nodded while eating. In fact, he also realized this. In the final, if his strength was stronger than Arlo, maybe the final result would be rewritten and the final winner might be Arlo of Maple Leaf Flow. History is written by the victors, and even if it is not written by the victors himself, is the history written not affirming the victors? Ma Yang is the champion of this conference, so in the exchange meeting after the game, various schools touted this dark horse who suddenly appeared and set him as an example. However, under the spotlight, Mu Yang also knew that he still had very obvious shortcomings. At best, it's not bad for its age. What else can you achieve if you become flirtatious as soon as you are touted? Flogging. The polite tout is sugar-coated cannonballs. The correct way is to eat the sugar coating and spit out the cannonballs. Therefore, after the post-match exchange meeting ended, Ma Yang was not in a hurry to return to Dakingshan with Sith, but planned to practice outside for a while. What's more, since he came to the southern region, he had to take the time to go to the Super Power Academy to see the situation of Mexia. Otherwise she would know that she was here but would not go to see her, who knows what she would complain about. After eating some snacks, it was already pouring rain outside. The rain fell on the blue sea, causing a mist of water vapor. At the same time, the wind and rain also intensified the waves on the sea surface, and the ferry had to slow down its sailing speed. An hour later, the pattering rain gradually stopped, and the ferry, which had been delayed for a while by the heavy rain, finally docked in the afternoon. Ma Yang, then I'll go back first. Be careful when you travel outside and go back when you're almost there. Before parting, Sith repeatedly warned. I see. Mu Yang nodded. Then take care. Sith is a straightforward person. After thinking about it, he found that the two big men really had nothing else to say, so he stopped there. He knew that with Ma Yang's current strength, there would be no danger even if he was alone outside, so he waved goodbye to him after exhorting him, took his luggage and walked towards the train station. Looking at the back of Sith disappearing into the crowd, Mu Yang cheered up, then turned around and walked towards the other side and soon disappeared into the crowd. The site of the Superpower Academy is located in a secluded mountain and old forest in the southern region. The specific time when this academy was established cannot be verified. Anyway, it already existed a long time ago. Its mystery is just like the Kalen Tower in Kalen Holy Land, and the local folk are full of all kinds of magical legends. It is said that admissions will be recruited every few years, and admissions points will be set up in nearby cities, but the exact location of the school is never disclosed to outsiders. In the quiet old forest, the sound of birds chirping sounded. Suddenly, a bright blue light penetrated the forest straight, and the trees hit by it fell down. Rumbling, a huge sound echoed in the sky, the earth was shaking, the birds flew up with a chirp, and the thick trees collapsed with smoke, and a road was opened up in the virgin forest. Mayang has been wandering in this forest for several days, and his dry food has long been exhausted. So when he is hungry, he will hunt some wild animals to fill his stomach, and when he is sleepy, he will just find a big tree, jump on a tree trunk and fall asleep. For a few days, he hadn't even seen the shadow of the Supernatural Academy. It should be near here. Mu Yang wandered in the woods, stepping on the green space, savagely driving the road. The surrounding mountains and green forests are beautiful, unusually quiet, and there is no trace of civilization at all. Mu Yang frowned slightly and his mental power spread out around him, but he still didn't find anything unusual. It's quite hard to find, Mu Yang muttered in his heart, but he wasn't surprised. If this superpower academy is really a place to cultivate superpowers, then it's not easy to find it by the other party's means. If I can't find it again, I won't have the chance to see Mexia this time. Mu Yang sighed softly, feeling a little regretful in his heart. However, since he has come here, Mayang doesn't plan to leave without any gains. Even if he can't find the Superpower Academy, he is ready to practice here for a while. After thinking about it, Mayang found a water pool nearby and then found a relatively empty area nearby. The Qigong wave in his hand was divided into several sections and spread out, rumbling and dusty, and he opened up an open space. Then I found wood to build a simple hut. Hands-on ability max. The environment here is very good and it can be used as a place to recuperate temporarily. Looking at the clean and leisurely scenery around, Mu Yang nodded with satisfaction, intending to stay here temporarily. Next, he leveled the obstacle between the pool and the hut and then moved stones to build a stove and set up a wooden frame for barbecue. The simple living facilities were completed. Okay, wiping the sweat from his forehead, Mu Yang clapped his palms and then went to look for food. With a bang, Mayang turned into a black shadow and fled into the jungle and walked back with a rabbit soon after. Peel the skin, remove the internal organs, and then put it on the rack and roast it with a small fire. When the blood-red meat is slowly browned by the flame, the transparent grease drips down the wooden rack and the whole forest immediately fills with rich meat fragrance. After eating the barbecue with satisfaction, Mu Yang's physical strength was replenished, and then he was ready to enter the acceleration space to practice. After sitting quietly for a while, Mu Yang mobilized the energy in his body, and then suddenly entered an acceleration space with gray and white as the main tone. The flow rate of time here is twice that of the outside world. With Mayang's current state, he can continue to open the acceleration space for 3 hours, that is, 6 hours inside. Exceeding the time will cause mental malaise. Cultivation in the acceleration space not only has the two benefits of doubling the time and replenishing the body's consumption, but also has the effect of tranquilizing the mind and calming the energy. Cultivation here can be free from distractions, and it is easier to enter the perception. After experiencing the world's #1 martial arts society, Mayang has a more detailed understanding of the level of the Earth martial arts world. In general, there are still many masters in the Earth martial arts world, such as the head of Maple Leaf Stream and the masters of Duolin Temple, Master Ziyurin, Elder Nali of Kayan Helyu. These are all first-class masters. Compared with them, Mayang still lacks a lot. This is the accumulation of age and experience, and it is impossible to match them in a short period of time. In terms of combat effectiveness, Mayang believes that he will catch up with them soon. White and empty. In the acceleration space, a strong and agile figure is doing basic exercises. He jumped so hard that he almost touched the ceiling above his head with every jump. 99.97, 99.98, 99.99, 10,000. Mayang kicked and jumped upwards more than 10,000 times in a row until his legs became sore and then stopped, wiped the sweat from his face, his eyes showed determination, and then he started to punch again. Tum tum tum. The thin air vibrated in the impact with the fist, and the violently vibrating air squeezed each other, making a dull tom-tom sound. It was a pity that Mu Yang did not have any weight-bearing equipment on his body, otherwise his cultivation would have achieved better results. He took out the energy detector and tested it with himself. The data displayed on the lens filled him with motivation. 97. That's right, in just a few days, Mayang's combat power reached 97. Of course, this is the highest statistic under a complete outbreak. In terms of combat power alone, this value is not too low. It has reached the first-class level in the world of martial arts on Earth, and it is an existence that cannot be underestimated in any genre. It's just that at this time, Mayang also discovered a problem, that is, when the combat power reaches around 100, the limitations of the Earthlings have begun to appear, and the growth of the subsequent combat power has obviously slowed down. After several days of testing, Mu Yang became more and more sure of this point. 100 combat power was a moat in front of the Earthlings. There are very few people who have successfully crossed this hurdle, and every one of them is a great martial artist. For Mayang, this hurdle must be overcome. Only 100 combat power is not enough, he has to become stronger. At this time, a sudden tingling pain came from his mind. Mu Yang knew that the cultivation time in the acceleration space had reached the limit, so he calmed down to adjust the breath in his body, and with a swoosh, his body disappeared from the white acceleration space. Back to the outside world, the deep mental exhaustion made him grin more than the soreness of the muscles from long-term exercise. With a bang, the body fell to sleep. After about 6 or 7 hours, Mayang woke up and his mental fatigue had been swept away. Next, he was going to start practicing Qi. Mayang was still very rough in the use of Qi because he had not yet come into contact with it, because of more sophisticated Qigong practitioners. Perhaps I should go to Kailan Tower to make a foray, Mu Yang thought. But before that, he still has some things to do. Kailan is thousands of miles away in the northern hemisphere. If you rely on the strength of your feet, you don't know how long it will take. At this time, it is not necessary to simply exercise the body, so Mayang wants to study the air dance technique. If you can fly in the sky, his speed can be greatly improved. The sky dance technique belongs to the secret skill of the crane immortal flow, but it is not a very clever skill, to put it bluntly. The qi in the body is condensed into shape and emitted in the form of palms or fingers is a qigong wave. Change the way of thinking and release the qi in the body through the soles of the feet little by little, so that it surrounds the whole body and counteracts the effect of gravity so that the gravity of the earth can be overcome. The attraction, the body floats. The air dance technique of high-speed flight is similar to the waverider technology on the Earth in the previous life. By controlling the surface of the shock wave delicately, stronger power can be obtained. Mayang's mind recalled the scene in the original book of Sun Wufan instructing Baidili to practice air dance. Compared with Baidili, Mayang's foundation is obviously much more solid. The bad thing is that the details are not revealed in the original book, and he needs to explore it himself. After several failed attempts, it didn't take long for him to control a small stream of air flowing along the thigh toward the sole of the foot, and then release it evenly through the sole of the foot. During the release process, Mu Yang's body really began to float a little bit. When he floated to 4 or 5 meters above the ground, he looked down at the green ground from a high position, and Mu Yang's heart also became unusually calm. Then carefully adjusted the posture of the body, and steadily flew to a higher place. At this time, the blue sky is as flawless as a mirror, and there is a lush and dense virgin forest underfoot, with beautiful mountains and rivers, and ancient trees are uneven, and an ethereal and vast mood arises spontaneously. Float. It's just the most basic part of air dance, and the next step is flying. That requires the air to permeate all parts of the body. Compared with simple floating, the difficulty has risen by a level. For high-speed flight, it is even more necessary to precisely control the shape of the shock surface, so that the resistance becomes a potential power. Mayang gradually imitated by Dilly's cultivation method in the original book. After 2 days, he could really soar in the sky as he wanted. Dance in the sky is the end of my practice, so I'll go to Kylin Holy Land next. Mu Yang estimated that if he could climb the Kylin Tower and accept the instructions of the Cat Fairy, then his strength should be able to make a great leap, enough to cross the first moat in front of him. Of course, this trip to Kylin Holy Land, in addition to learning more clever cultivation methods from the Cat Fairy, is also to obtain the Earth's holy medicine fairy beans. In the early days of Dragon Ball World, there were many strange things on the Earth, and Xiandu was one of them. In the early stage of Dragon Ball, Xiandu did not show any value, but it can make people not feel hungry. But in the later stage, it is a well-deserved life-saving magic weapon. Not only can quickly restore physical strength, but also can instantly treat any injury. It's a pity that in the late stage of Dragon Ball, the production of fairy beans plummeted, making a fairy bean like a treasure, and can only be used on the blade. But now Xiandu has not been spoiled by Yakalobe, and there is still a lot of stock in Cat Xianrin. Gone! Flying in the air with a long whistle, Mu Yang raised his height, but as his vision became wider and wider just as he was about to fly towards the north, a distant paradise-like area suddenly caught his attention. It was an area shrouded in a light curtain, and Mu Yang's expression became a little stunned. It turned out to be far away from the horizon and in front of me, and the place I've been looking for so long is actually there. The sky was clear, the wind was blowing. The warm sun shone down, dappled bright spots among the trees through the leaves. Not far from Mayang there was a rustling noise in the big forest, and some slender animals were frightened and fled into the depths of the forest. Shayetan, your instructor asked you to patrol around the academy. Why are you lying here and being lazy? An angry voice came, and a young man in a blue uniform flew to Shayetan's side, with a clear look of hesitation on his face. The man named Shayetan sat up abruptly. He couldn't help laughing when he saw the person coming and said nonchalantly, "Sami, what are you doing so care about? I'm just being lazy, why do I need to be so angry?" However, seeing the face of the other party that turned gloomy like ink, Shayetan's voice became smaller and smaller. Sammy glared at Shayetan dissatisfiedly. "You also said that the instructor asked you to patrol, so you are better." Yes, you're right, but this is a superpower academy and it's not a random place. Anyone can come, and isn't there a dean? She doesn't know anything, so she needs it. Shall we patrol? Shayetan responded casually, but the man got up from the ground quite honestly. Idiot, this is practice, do you know? Sammy looked at Shayetan angrily. Okay, I won't argue with you, let's go on patrol. Shayetan didn't bother to argue with Sammy. He used his superpower to hold up his body and floated around in the big forest where the academy was located. Oh, this guy, Sammy shook his head and followed him on patrol. Superpower Academy is a place specialized in cultivating superpowers. It has a long history and has existed for an unknown number of years. Like Kylin Holy Land, it is a relatively detached place. The students here mainly come from two sources. One is the superpowers sent in from the outside world, such as Mexia. The other is the children cultivated by several superpower kindergartens attached to the Superpower Academy. Sammy and Shayetan went to school after graduating from the Superpower Kindergarten. In the original book, both Oolong and Pool studied at the Southern Transformation Kindergarten, but Oolong was expelled for stealing the female teacher's underwear. Pool didn't know the reason, but he didn't enter the superpower school anyway. The Earth is a magical place. In some unknown remote areas, there are still passages leading to the Devil World, Yellow Springs, and other incredible places. In ancient times, monsters that disrupted human life often appeared from these passages. At this time, superpowers and martial artists became the main force against these external threats because of their incredible power. However, with the rapid development of modern technology, superpowers and martial artists gradually disappeared from the world. Well, there is a situation. Just as Sammy and Shayetan stumbled and patrolled a relatively open territory, a black spot suddenly flew from the sky. As the distance got closer, the black spot began to grow larger, and gradually took on the appearance of a humanoid. Sammy and Shayetan noticed the figure. Shayetan pressed his arm against each other and said, "Sami, who do you think that person would be?" "I don't know, no matter what, be careful." Sammy also looked at the figure, his expression became serious, and his body floated up to stop him. Stop, this is the territory of the Superpower Academy. If you have nothing to do, please leave immediately. The young man who flew in the sky that day was none other than Mu Yang. He was about to go to Kylin Holy Land at that time. When he reached a certain height, he discovered that there was a place that looked like a paradise in a place not far from him. Flying over to take a look, it really is the Superpower School he was looking for. This friend, it would be right if this is the Superpower School. My name is Mayang and I come from the martial arts school Tianzinliu. This time I came to see my junior sister Mexia. I wonder if you can inform me. Let Mexia come over. Mayang got straight to the point and showed his identity to avoid unnecessary trouble. When Sammy heard this, his expression was not as alert as before. It turned out to be here to see Mexia. Wait a moment, and I'll have someone inform her. Sammy stopped Mayang with a smile, then gave Shayadun a wink and asked him to go back to the academy to make sure. There are not many students in the Superpower Academy, and even if they are not familiar with each other, they generally know each other. Shayi was stunned for a moment, then flew in the direction of the academy. Mayang watched the two communicate with their eyes and naturally knew that the other party was still wary, but he didn't care. After all, this is the site of the Superpower Academy and Mexia is also studying here. Just wait, he no need to cause trouble. He chuckled lightly and landed on the ground to wait quietly. What's this guy called? Mu Yang asked. You can just call me Sammy. Sammy's attitude was not bad, he said beside a big tree. Sammy, you must have been in the academy for a long time, right? For many years, I was raised from Superpower Kindergarten. Superpower Kindergarten? I heard that there is a kindergarten that teaches transformation. Have you ever learned it? Hearing an interesting place, Mu Yang asked with bright eyes. Sammy glanced at Mu Yang in surprise and nodded. Transformation Kindergarten is also one of the kindergartens under the Superpower Academy. I have learned the transformation technique, but my level is not good and the transformation time can only last for 10 minutes. Mayang nodded and felt that it was very good. You must know that the transformation time of Oolong and Pool in the original book can only last for 5 minutes, and you need to rest for 1 minute in the middle to continue transformation. Sammy can last for 10 minutes, but he still says he can't. Either Sammy is humble or Oolong and Pool are really weak. But back to the topic, the Southern Transformation Kindergarten teaches some simple and basic superpower skills, such as transformation, which does not actually enhance the strength of the learners themselves, but it is very good to confuse people. Here, Mayang and Sammy chatted without a word and gained a little understanding of the Superpower Academy. After about 10 minutes, Shayadun came back from the direction of the Superpower Academy, and a slender and small figure followed behind him. With bright eyes and bright teeth, Painting is delicate and her dark green hair just covers her ears. It is Mexia, who has not been seen for many years. At this time, Mexia was 15 years old and her body had grown a lot. Her slender body had already taken on the appearance of a cardamom girl. When she saw Mayang from a distance, Mexia had a pair of blue eyes. There was a flash of joy and then a cheer light green fluorescence shone on his body, and a tornado with a hint of emerald green rushed towards Mu Yang. Senior brother, how did you think of coming to see me? Mexia's crisp voice was ringing in her ears. Mayang caught Mexia's body, the soft touch and the sweet fragrance made him stunned for a moment, and he couldn't help but wonder if the beautiful girl in front of him was Mexia, who always dangled behind him. Wearing a black long-sleeved loose school robe, the collar is raised high and the hem is scattered like a windbreaker. If you wear a pair of sunglasses, don't mention how astringent it is. But it's so powerful, he muttered to himself, looking at the girl in front of him. I haven't missed you for a few years, so I came to see you. Mexia giggled and gave Mayang a blank look. Who are you lying to? I don't believe it. Don't believe it, Mu Yang shrugged. Mexia has not returned home in these years. It is said that this is the internal regulation of the Superpower Academy. It seems that only when the upper limit of school age is reached or his own ability reaches a certain standard, he can graduate and leave the academy. It is said that this was done to protect the beginners and also to hide the location of the academy. After stroking the girl's fluffy dark green hair, Mu Yang turned to Sammy and Shaydun and said, Mexia and I haven't seen her for a long time and I want to take her out for a walk. You two are optional, Sammy smiled lightly and left with Shaydun. My teacher knows that you are here, brother, and she gave me a day off. Mexia held Mu Yang's hand and said with great interest, her little white hand was cold and as warm as Jasper, senior brother, I haven't seen you for a long time. See you, tell me about things in the sect. Okay, Mayang nodded with a smile and said yes, took Mexia's hand and walked towards the temporary residence he built. The surface of the pool is rippling with blue waves, the water is gurgling, the surrounding birds and flowers are fragrant, and the tranquil scenery is as beautiful as a dream. Mayang and Mexia sat on the ground and chatted about interesting things they had encountered in the past few years. Speaking of that, he came to participate in the world's #1 martial arts club this time and won the championship. Mayang glanced at Mexia proudly, and when he saw her looking surprised, Mayang felt even more proud. Senior brother, it's only been over 3 years for you to be so powerful. Mexia's eyes shone brightly, chattering with excitement. No. The corners of Mu Yang's mouth raised slightly. When facing the innocent girl Mexia, Mu Yang relaxed as never before. The troubles that had been buried in his heart immediately disappeared and his mood became extraordinarily relaxed. At this time, all Saiyans and Friezas disappeared. I will also participate in the next martial arts meeting. I will defeat you then, Mexia said seriously. It's not that difficult. Mu Yang laughed, pressing her palm on her head, suddenly remembered something, took out a lens-like object from his arms and handed it to Mexia. Mexia, this is for you. It was an energy detector. In addition to not telling Mexia about the accelerated space, he did not hide the discovery of the alien spaceship. Taking over the probe, Mexia looked at the lens-like thing curiously. Is this the energy probe you mentioned earlier, alien technology? Yes, there are only 3 copies on Earth, so you have to keep them. Mu Yang looked at her with a smile. Oh, I see. Mexia was very happy and she was about to come over and peck Mu Yang on the cheek. Mayang was waiting. How could Mexia hesitate for a while, looking at Mayang, who was looking forward to it? He actually laughed. His mouth didn't come close, but he stretched out his hand. His index finger and thumb were slightly bent and he snapped his index finger on Mu Yang's face. Cough cough. Weird. The script shouldn't have developed that way. Such a beautiful day, no guesswork. Shouldn't I have to peck first and then talk about it? Touching the place where Mexia had bounced, Mu Yang coughed lightly. He didn't have a lolicon. The girl in front of her is no longer a loli, at most it's just a little small. But it doesn't matter if it's small, it will grow up in a few years. Then teach Mexia how to use this energy detector. This energy detector uses hexadecimal, and Mayang needs to teach her how to convert hexadecimal to decimal, but Mexia's brain is very flexible and she quickly learned it. After Mexia learned, he couldn't wait to test it on himself, and the displayed reading was converted to 41. 41's combat power. Why is there only so much? Is this high or low? Mexia raised her head and looked at Mu Yang with clear eyes. Mu Yang smiled and said, it's already pretty good. 41 points of combat power. This is the energy in Mexia's body. This result is of course not bad. The source of superpower is also energy, but this kind of energy is more restrained, not pure explosive power. When it is used, it will have different effects due to the type of superpower. But one thing is common: the greater the energy value, the more effective the combat effect. If Mexia used superpowers at this time, even Mayang now would not be able to break free for a while. Brother, what's your fighting strength? 97. Hey, that's so much worse. Mexia looked frustrated. She originally thought that the difference between herself and her senior brother would not be that big, but now she doesn't even have half of his fighting power. So he cocked his lips and flung Mu Yang onto the grass with his teeth and claws open. Don't make trouble, your combat power is really good. The other brothers in Dakingshan are only 20 or 30 combat power. Real. Do not lie to you. Yulugulu tilde. It was noisy for a while, until the sound of protest came from the stomach. I'm hungry. Mexia touched her stomach. Mexia, I'll let you taste your brother's craftsmanship today. Okay, Mexia called out happily, and Mu Yang was also in a happy mood. The two seemed to be back to their childhood appearance, carefree with a touch of warmth surrounding their hearts. Mayang found firewood and lit the cigarette, and Mexia called the prey, and then Mayang was responsible for cleaning the prey, adding the grill, and the food that was roasted brown and dripping with grease was prepared in a short while. Sprinkle it on the necessary condiments. The brothers and sisters feasted and enjoyed it. The happy time is always short, the time passes inadvertently, and soon it is time to part. When leaving, Mejia was reluctant to part with tears. Senior brother, I'm going back, and I will come to see me often in the future. It will definitely come. I'll be angry if I don't come. Mexia wrinkled her nose. Got it? Muyang smiled at her pitiful look. After getting Mayang's promise, Mexia reluctantly flew in the direction of the academy. Seeing Mexia's gradually shrinking back, Muyang stayed in place for a while and adjusted his mood. Raising his head and looking at the clear and flawless sky, Muyang's eyes gradually became firmer. Then he got up in the air, slammed, and flew towards the sky and soon disappeared into the vast sky. Kailin, the holy place of martial arts, is said to be the birthplace of martial arts on Earth. It is located on a vast plain in the northern hemisphere of the Earth, backed by a towering mountain range covered with ice and snow all year round, which towers into the clouds from south to north. Because of it, most of the water vapor from the Western Ocean is blocked in the mountain on the other side. The Kailin Holy Land near the sea will not become a rainforest with too much rain. The entirety of Kailin Holy Land is a large basin that sinks downwards. It covers more than 100 kilometers and is full of dense forests. From a distance, it looks like a green wave swaying constantly under the wind. In the center of the Kailin Holy Land, there is a Kailin Tower connected to the heavens. According to legend, only by climbing up the Kailin Tower with bare hands can you see the immortals living on the Kailin Tower and accept the instructions of the immortals. More than 200 years ago, when martial arts on Earth was extremely prosperous, there was an endless stream of martial artists who came to challenge Kailin Tower. The martial arts school has suffered heavy losses, and it has not recovered to this day, so the people who came to challenge Kailin are not as good as before. But today, a figure is approaching the location of Kailin Tower at a fast speed. Wow! A flash of light passed through several snow-capped mountains and a flat skyline appeared in sight. Muyang flew to the sky above the great forest of Kailin Holy Land and saw a long tower towering to the sky in sight. Finally arrived at Kailin Holy Land, that slender line should be Kailin Tower, so slender. Muyang looked at the Kailin Tower in the distance in surprise, and when he really saw the Kailin Tower, it was far more shocking than he imagined. Decrease the height and gradually approach Kailin Tower. The base of the Kailin Tower is about 2 meters wide. It is deeply rooted in the ground. The ivory tower is only more than 1 meter thick. I don't know what material it is made of. It is carved with various totem patterns. Flowers and birds have human faces and animal appearances. These totems may be a belief of ancient human beings in nature. With his feet on the ground, Muyang raised his head and looked up at the tower whose apex could not be seen, then moved his body in place, ready to formally challenge Kailin Tower. It should be said that it is indeed the world of Dragon Ball. As long as you find the right way of cultivation that conforms to the rules, even people from the earth have powerful power. This should be caused by the rules of the world. Anyway, Muyang knew that in his original world, he would definitely not be able to cultivate and appear in this power, probably because the universe was filled with a force field called Qi. Now he is about to challenge Kailin. Suddenly, an arrow flew towards him. The icy tip shone with cold light. Muyang immediately stretched out his hand and grabbed the arrow in his hand. This is not the way of hospitality. Putting the arrow on the ground, Muyang said in a cold voice. Stop, what are you doing here? A man's voice came from behind. Swish swish, 6 or 7 Indians with stripes on their faces came out of the forest with quivers on their backs. These Indians dressed very much like Bra in the original book, holding spears, sharp arrows, and wearing animal tooth necklaces around their necks. All of them looked at Mayang with a wary expression. Guardian of Kailin's Holy Land. Muyang raised his eyebrows and recognized the identities of these people at a glance. Strictly speaking, not everyone is qualified to challenge the Kailin Tower because the Kailin Tower towers into the sky and it is dangerous to challenge it. These guardians live in the big forest of the Holy Land all year round and take the responsibility of guarding the big forest. It is the first level before challenging Kalin Tower. Stranger, your kung fu is very good, tell your identity. The Indian at the forefront came forward with a spear in hand. Mu Yang from Tianzinliu came here today to challenge Kalin Tower, Mu Yang said with a serious face. The Indian looked surprised after hearing this and said unexpectedly, "You are Mu Yang, the champion of this world's #1 martial arts club." Mu Yang was surprised for a moment. He didn't expect that the guardian living in Kylin Holy Land would actually know the information of the #1 martial arts society in the world. He immediately thought that it is not the kind of martial arts of later generations who are hidden from the world, and the exchanges between schools are still very frequent. So nodded, "Yes, I am Mayang." Hearing Mayang confirming his identity, the attitudes of those Indians obviously became enthusiastic. "I offended just now, my name is Oz, the guardian of Kalinta." The headed Indian named Oz expressed his apology, waved his hands to let the people behind him put down their weapons and then said with emotion, "You said you were here to challenge Kalinta. After so many years, someone has finally come to challenge again. To tell you the truth, this is not an easy task and you will lose your life if you are not careful. My clansmen have also tried but they have all failed. Are you sure you want to challenge Kalin Tower? There are not many clansmen who protect the clan and only the most outstanding warriors are qualified to live near Kalin Tower. But even they failed and it is conceivable how difficult it is to challenge Kalin Tower." Mayang said, "Thank you for your concern, I have already prepared myself mentally." Seeing the other party's firm attitude, Oz nodded, "I see that you have traveled a long way to get here, why don't you take care of your body and wait until this time tomorrow to challenge?" "No, I'm in good shape and I'm going to challenge now, I appreciate your kindness." Mu Yang shook his head and refused. Oz glanced at Mu Yang in astonishment and moved out of the way. "In that case, I wish you good luck." "Thank you." After speaking, Mu Yang faced Kalin Tower, his leg muscles suddenly exerted force and a whirlwind suddenly rolled up on the ground. With this explosive force, Mu Yang shuttled towards the sky at a lightning speed. Go, the toes lightly stepped on the raised node of Kalin Tower, and it turned into a black spot in 3 or 2 times, disappearing from everyone's sight. Below, the Indian guardian stared at the sky that had lost Mayang's trace and was dumbfounded. After a long time, Oz closed his mouth, looked at his clan and said incredulously, "That young man is actually so strong, maybe he can really see Fairy Kylin. Yeah, worthy of being the champion of the world's #1 martial arts club." Others applauded. "No, he's much better than previous champions." Oz shook his head and looked at Kalin Tower, which was penetrating into the clouds again. The white clouds stretched high in the sky and the ivory-colored tower traversed between the sky and the ground. As the height gradually increased, the horizon showed a curved arc. Here the air becomes thinner and the temperature begins to drop. Mayang climbed a dozen kilometers in one go and then began to rest by embracing a bulge on the surface of the Kalin Tower. This outward bulge has one every 7 or 8 meters, as if it was specially used for the challenger to rest. Of course, not all challengers have the ability to borrow these bumps and must also have a certain strength. I don't know how this Kalin Tower was built, and it hasn't reached the top yet. Lifting his head and looking up, the Kalin Tower, who could not see his head, disappeared into the vast sky, and the surrounding area had begun to enter the troposphere. It stands to reason that the oxygen here should be very thin, but Mayang unexpectedly found that the concentration of oxygen has indeed dropped, but it is enough to maintain the minimum needs of life. Keep going. After resting for about 10 minutes, Mu Yang pumped up his energy and continued to climb higher. In the process of challenging the Kalin Tower, Mayang never used the air dance technique, because the significance of climbing the Kalin Tower is to exercise the patience of the body. Legend has it that there is a magical spring water called super holy water on Kalin Tower. You can greatly increase your strength by drinking a sip, but it is actually just ordinary spring water. What really improves the strength is the whole process of challenging Kalin Tower. Even if it is the super divine water that really has the effect of discovering potential, it is a bet with life. Super divine water is a highly poisonous thing, and if you are not careful, you will be poisoned to death and you will really meet the king of hell. Of course, when it comes to super divine water, I have to say that Mu Yang has some doubts. In the original book, Sun Wukong's strength increased after drinking the super divine water. Is it really because the super divine water played a role, or was it activated by the dying Sun Wukong? With Saiyan blood, this is impossible to know. However, Mu Yang knew that without the blessing of blood, there is no shortcut in cultivation, and every step must be down to earth. In this way, Mayang stopped and walked and spent 3 days on the Kalen Tower, seeing that the dry food on his body is about to be exhausted, but he can't see the top of the tower when he raises his head. This process is very grueling. If you are not mentally strong enough, you may have to give up long ago. At the beginning of the plot, it took Sun Wukong a day and a night to climb the Kalen Tower. My strength is not as good as that of the Sun Wukong at that time. It will definitely take more time, but it should be almost there. Mayang grabbed a bump and thought to himself. Then he tied a temporary sheath with the belt he carried with him and used certain safety measures when he stopped to rest. After another night when Mu Yang was about to run out of ammunition and food and even nearly fell off the Kalen Tower several times, a flat spherical black shadow finally appeared in the blurred vision. That is the top of Kalen Tower. In 4 days he finally climbed to the top. At this time, the morning sun had just risen and the surrounding clouds and Kalen Tower were smudged into a sacred place. Mu Yang's spirit suddenly cheered up. He accelerated his speed and rushed upwards and got in through one of the 4 entrances below the top of the tower. Finally climbed up, Mu Yang was so tired that he was out of breath. After climbing the Kalen Tower, he finally fell to the ground. After resting for a while, the soreness in his thighs gradually subsided and Mu Yang had the strength to look at his surroundings. This is a fairly spacious area with oval skylights all around. In addition to the 4 entrances connecting the tower in the middle, there are also several water tanks arranged in an orderly manner. There is a bathtub and a bathtub next to it, small bed for sleeping. This is where the cat fairy usually lives. The cat immortal is not here, so it should be above. The cat immortal could not be seen everywhere. Mu Yang deduced that it should be on the 2nd floor, so he walked along the stairs to the 2nd floor. The 2nd floor of the Kalen Tower is obviously much wider than the 1st floor. Except for a stone platform with a kettle in the middle, the area of more than 100 square meters has no extra decorations. The view here is wide and there are no walls. There are only 12 relief stone pillars between the upper and lower floors. Mu Yang noticed that there was a huge crystal ball floating above the stone platform where the kettle was placed. The crystal ball was more than 80 cm in diameter, round and translucent, and the whole body was crystal clear. It seemed that a magical force was supporting it to float in midair. Mu Yang really didn't know about this crystal ball before, and he didn't pay attention to whether there was such a crystal ball in the original book. At this time, the crystal ball was motionless, and it seemed to play a role in stabilizing the entire Kalen Tower. In general, the structure on the top of the Kalen Tower is a flat spherical building. The lowermost floor is the smallest, only about 30 square meters. The middle floor is the most spacious. The area of more than 100 square meters is where the cat immortals train martial artists. From the perspective of structure, the training ground is only the middle part of the top of the tower, and there seems to be some structure above it, but it is hidden. It's very good you actually climbed here, you are amazing. The white-haired cat immortal stood in front of Mu Yang with a cane, quietly hiding from Mu Yang's perception. When did it appear? Mu Yang didn't feel when the cat fairy appeared at all, and while secretly frightened, he also looked at the other party. As expected of an immortal who has lived for more than 800 years, on the surface, its strength is completely invisible. You are Immortal Kalen. Mu Yang pretended not to know the identity of Immortal Cat. Immortal Mao washed his face with his claws. Yes, young man, no one has climbed up for many years. Do you want to drink super holy water here? Seeing Mayang nodding, Immortal Mao narrowed his eyes. It's not easy. The super holy water is not for you to drink for nothing. The cat fairy twisted his fat body and used his crutches to support the super holy water on the central stone platform. If you want to drink it, you must grab it from me. Sure enough, it was training to grab a water bottle. Mu Yang had long been prepared, knowing that this was the training form of immortal cats for martial arts. So he solemnly performed the etiquette of a martial artist, left a good impression on the other party, and began to snatch. I'm going to start Fairy Kalen. Well, Immortal Cat nodded secretly to Mu Yang's polite behavior. When facing the opponent's flying body, Immortal Mouse slightly changed his body posture and actually cleverly avoided Mu Yang's flying attack. Young man, just relying on brute force is not enough. You are a disciple of Tianxin Liu, so you won't even forget the most basic things about your school. The cat immortal shook his head. Most of the martial arts on Earth came from Kylin. It was spread on the pagoda that the cat fairy itself lived for more than 800 years, and any tricks were so rough in its eyes. The immortal actually knows Tianxin Liu. Giggle, I know a lot. Tianxin Liu was also very powerful in the past, but it was a pity later. P.S. This book is currently in the recommendation period. Ask for a recommendation ticket. Your name is Mayang, right? It can be seen that you have put a lot of effort into the basics of your body. Few of those martial artists in the lower realms can train the basics to be as solid as you. The cat fairy said in a flat tone while dodging. With years of experience, it can see through Mu Yang's foundation at a glance, and a hint of surprise arises in his heart, but he also sees what is lacking in him. He shook his head and said, although the foundation is polished to perfection, you still can't make good use of your qi. Because you don't know how to restrain yourself, the qi in your body is like a firefly in the dark night, and your actions and intentions are exposed from afar. Well, this may be the reason for the overall decline of the lower world martial arts level, but I don't blame you. The cat immortal strolled in the courtyard, making a sharp evaluation. Mayang stopped, looked at the cat immortal seriously, and expressed admiration for its evaluation. As Immortal Mao said, there are few schools in the world that know how to practice Qigong, so how can they be perfectly restrained? However, this problem is not without solution. The naive cat fairy in front of him is undoubtedly a good teacher and friend in this regard, so he is not reserved and said, please teach me the method of restraining my breath. Giggle, this is not in a hurry. When you know how to use the qi in your body, restraint will naturally be a matter of course. Immortal Mao yawned, swayed around Mayang and nodded. To be honest, your Tianxin Liu Qigong is still unique. After all, it is a secret method passed down from ancient times, and it is somewhat different from the current one, but you haven't practiced it yet. You climbed the Kalin Tower all the way up from below. You must be a little tired. Take a good rest first and think about it for yourself. From tomorrow, I will officially teach you how to practice. After saying that, Immortal Cat waved his hand and walked downstairs with his cane. Mayang watched blankly, watching the cat fairy go downstairs. Obviously, through the simple test just now, Immortal Cat has already grasped his pulse, and the formal practice will start tomorrow. This made him a little excited, and after the excitement, a wave of exhaustion swept over, and he simply lay down on the ground and slept soundly, and after a while he snored softly. Frankly, he was really tired. The next day the sky cleared up. The cat immortal took out a bag of dry flour from his inventory and let Mu Yang eat a little with the spring water, and then he officially began to practice. Chewing the sticky and tasteless flour ball in his mouth, Mu Yang's whole face became bitter. Although these flowers can fill his stomach, it is really hard to swallow. Spent 3 years. From this point on, we still have to admire the turtle fairy. Barely filling his stomach when he was full of energy, Mu Yang walked to the cat immortal. Immortal Cat looked at him. Oh, it's already eaten, so let's start practicing now. Please enlighten me, Mu Yang said seriously. Hee, you're welcome. Immortal Cat narrowed his eyes as if smiling. I studied your experience last night, so I plan to divide your cultivation into 3 steps. Saying that, he raised 3 fingers. First of all, it is for your mistakes in tricks and movements, because there is no smart teacher's guidance before. You have many redundant flaws and there are too many unnecessary actions. Fortunately, it is now made up. These are fairly easy, and when they are deeply ingrained, it will not be easy to change. The cat fairy spoke eloquently. Mayang listened carefully and agreed. At least he had read the original book and knew that the extra actions would definitely become the subjects that the cat fairy would focus on correcting. Mayang had been prepared for this from the very beginning. In fact, the practice of martial arts must be a process from complex to simple. To reduce unnecessary waste in battle, Mu Yang has always been aware of this, but before this, he has never met a good person who can effectively guide him, just a teacher. Although Asaf is a good martial artist and a well-known martial artist, his guidance is still far from the real big guy cat immortal. It should be said that on the entire earth there are not many people whose knowledge is above the cat fairy. The second is the practice of Qigong. Tianxin Liu's Qigong is very good and quite ingenious, but you have not yet brought out its essence, so you need to make up for this part of the shortcomings. After Qigong practice is perfected, your strength will be improved. Naturally, it will increase significantly. Finally, the convergence of breath. This is a fairly general concept. Exactly what it means to restrain the breath also varies from person to person. Different people have different sensitivities to qi. Maybe you think that the breath has been restrained, but in the eyes of some people is still exposed. I will not force you in this regard. No, please train with the strictest requirements for immortal Kailan, Mu Yang begged earnestly. If immortal Mao couldn't even meet the highest requirements, how would he stand on the top of the strong in the future? The fact that his combat power has never been able to break through the 100 mark must be due to the lack of something in his practice. The lack will not be in action, but in some kind of special requirement. The development of the body has temporarily reached the limit, so can the cultivation or control of the breath allow the cultivator to enter a completely different realm? Tianxin Liu's cultivation method was different from Gixian Liu from the very beginning. He couldn't just imitate it just because he knew the original work. Mayang hoped that he would be improved in the cat immortal. A glimmer of admiration flashed in Immortal Cat's eyes, and she nodded while stroking her beard. Okay, then I will train you with the strictest requirements, as you said, but before that my training is quite difficult. I'm ready, please don't worry, Fairy Kylan. Very good. The Immortal Cat nodded, looking at the determined boy in front of him. He took out a bell out of nowhere and tied it to himself. After doing all this, the cat fairy picked up the kettle on the stone platform with a cane like yesterday. The next thing you have to do is to snatch the kettle from me hanging on the wooden staff, whether it's while I'm asleep or distracted. You can use any method as long as you grab the water bottle from my place, you will pass. Because it's the first stage, a bell will be tied to my body and I won't take this bell off. When you can grab this water bottle from me, you can start the second stage. Training, then take off the bell and grab the water bottle from my place again, and then go to the third stage. As for how to practice in the third stage, we will wait until the second stage is completed. Maybe the first two stages alone will take a long time. Mayang was stunned for a moment. This was different from when the cat fairy was training Sun Wukong. In the original book, when Sun Wukong snatched the water bottle, the cat fairy did not have a bell on his body. Maybe it is because his strength has not reached the level of Sun Wukong in the original work, so the cat fairy reduced the difficulty of training when training. The first stage did not appear in the original work, and the second stage is the training method of Sun Wukong in the original work. Kalen Fairy, let's get started. After understanding the cat immortal's plan, Mayang nodded to the cat immortal and then prepared to snatch the water bottle. Bell, bell, bell. Facing Mu Yang's rushing action, Immortal Cat squinted and dodged around. It didn't deliberately hide its aura, so as it swayed around, the little bell made a bell, bell, bell sound. Mu Yang searched for the sound to change the trajectory of the flying, and many times he was about to catch the water bottle, but the cat immortal shrank his palm, and the wooden stick in his hand lifted the water bottle and slid to another place. The air at the heights of the Kalen Tower was thin, and it didn't take long for Mu Yang to start panting. The cat fairy stopped with a cane. The environment on Kalen Tower is different from the one below. The air here is only half of that below. If you don't control and reduce unnecessary movements, your body will quickly become unbearable. I get it, Mu Yang was panting, shouted loudly and took the opportunity to fly and jump up. The cat immortal laughed, and every time he was about to touch the kettle, his body swayed and the kettle passed Mayang again. Pay attention to the sound of the bell, don't be disturbed by my movements. Immortal Cat's voice suddenly sounded in his ears, startling Mu Yang. Looking closely, an enlarged version of the cat's face suddenly appeared in front of him. The cat immortal grinned at Mu Yang, revealing 2 rows of white teeth. Just as Mu Yang stretched out his hand, the cat's face in front of him suddenly turned into an afterimage and was torn apart. You have to reduce your own wear and tear, find the best flying path, and at the same time exercise a good eye. You don't need to pay attention to all the movements of the opponent in the battle with others, as long as you learn to grasp the key points. Sometimes a simple blow can actually to be decisive. It's like this. The cat fairy just finished speaking, his eyes narrowed into a line. The movement that had been dodging suddenly changed. Immortal Cat left a few afterimages on the spot and bluntly stretched out the wooden stick to move forward a little bit. The wooden stick hit Mu Yang's chest, and Mu Yang twitched all over. Suddenly, like a huge explosive force exploded in his chest, and he fell to the ground and lost his ability to resist. The attack just now is a test of your eyesight and determination. It's not enough just to see it with your eyes, you have to make a decision right away. Amazing! Mu Yang bared his teeth and got up, rubbing his chest. But his eyes were filled with a strong desire to become stronger. Ha ha ha, it's a piece of cake. You can rest for a while, and when you figure it out, you can continue to practice. Immortal Mao laughed heartily, then hit a hake, lying on the bench next to him, and went to sleep. Mayang watched silently, taking the words of Immortal Cat in his heart, so that he could get the guidance of a wise person on the way of cultivation, and he could avoid a lot of detours. Although he knew the truth of what the cat fairy said before, practice is the best teacher. Just listening and not practicing fake hand poses and practicing while listening has an unparalleled effect. In a flash, 8 or 9 days have passed. In the past few days, Mayang is like a sponge that absorbs water, constantly absorbing the martial arts principles taught by the cat immortal in the training, so that his understanding and control of power have improved significantly. Although Mu Yang's energy value has remained stagnant for the past few days and has not broken through the 100 threshold, he feels that he has gained a great deal, which is far more exciting than the improvement of his combat power. On the 10th day, Mu Yang's ineffective actions have been reduced a lot and his flaws have become less and less, and when he played the game of Snatch the Kettle with the cat fairy again, he has begun to show his own style. The cat fairy saw all this and nodded secretly in his heart. Finally, on the 18th day, Mayang successfully grabbed the kettle from the cat fairy, and the cat fairy also told the truth about the super holy water. Actually, there is no super holy water in this world. The water in the kettle is just ordinary spring water. The real cultivation is the process of taking the kettle. You can try it, your strength is much stronger than before. The strength mentioned by the cat fairy does not only refer to combat strength, but comprehensive strength. For martial artists on Earth, because the energy is generally not high, they value comprehensive strength, and the combat strength detected by instruments alone is not a decision. The key to the final victory. Combat power is the power of one blow, and comprehensive strength considers all aspects, including combat skills and combat strategies. Simply put, it is how to hit the opponent more effectively. Of course, the relationship between the two is very high and their combat effectiveness is high, so their comprehensive strength must not be low. After all, combat effectiveness is the basis of comprehensive strength. Kalen Immortal, I already understand. It's good to understand. The cat fairy nodded and took off the small bell on her body. Come on, I won't let you water again at this time. Please. Mu Yang was arrogant and serious, and then began to adjust the aura of his body. Mu Yang took the lead in launching the attack. His movements were as fast as a gust of wind and his momentum was like lightning. He saw a white light and shadow flashed across the air and appeared in front of Immortal Cat in the blink of an eye, then changed direction and moved towards it. The kettle on the crutches attacked. But after the bell was removed, the cat fairy's movements became more mysterious than before. The Immortal Cat smiled and acted very casually, and immediately deceived Mu Yang. Dang dang dang. He could only hear the sound and see no one. Mu Yang's speed had already accelerated to the limit, but Immortal Cat's movements seemed to be faster. I only saw 2 blurred lights and shadows constantly flashing in the more than 100 square meter training ground, and the cold wind blew towards the outside of the Kalen Tower. Mu Yang's eyeballs kept moving with the movements of the cat fairy, but the movements of the cat fairy were full of bewildering, unpredictable, and the eyes seemed to be insufficient. Excessive moves are unnecessary, but moves to confuse opponents are not. Crackling, Immortal Cat jumped lightly, the wooden stick crossed a beautiful arc in the void, and then picked it up. The kettle landed firmly on the stone platform in the center. Okay, that's it for today's training. Continue to think about today's training tonight. The cat fairy waved his hand and went to rest again. Eh? Looking at the back of immortal cat walking down the stairs, Mu Yang gasped to wipe the sweat off his face and sat on the ground. After the rest was almost over, Mu Yang began to adjust the breath in his body, and then with a bang he entered the acceleration space. The acceleration space at this time is still a space with a radius of 10 meters, but it is very different from before. As Mu Yang's power continued to approach the 100 mark, there was now a thick layer of clouds and mists accumulated on the pale sky, and those clouds and mists kept rolling like a solid wall covering the sky. Especially after he climbed the Kalen Tower, the speed of the accumulation of clouds and mist continued to accelerate, and the ceiling became lower and lower. If it goes on like this, after a while, the ceiling of this space will be pressed down. Looking at the dense cloud layer, there was a feeling that the black cloud was pressing down on the city and the city was about to be destroyed, but Mu Yang had an urge to smash it. It seemed that as long as the ceiling was shattered, a smooth path would appear in front of him. Take your time, with the current progress, it may not be long before this acceleration space will change. Mayang still couldn't figure out the origin of this acceleration space, so he had to attribute it to the accessory he had passed through, so he handled this space carefully. Time has passed. In the second month after Mayang ascended the Kalen Tower, the ceiling of the acceleration space has reached the level of approaching the ground. If this continues, the function of the acceleration space will be seriously affected. At this time, Mu Yang was also ready to make a desperate attempt to defeat it with all his strength. 2 months of practice gave him confidence in this regard. One night the stars were shining brightly, and the moon was like a plate. While the cat fairy returned to sleep downstairs, Mu Yang quietly entered the acceleration space. Looking up at the clouds that seemed to be substantial, the clouds were only 3 meters high from the top of the head, and they really became the ceiling. Mu Yang adjusted his breath and made the final preparations. Ho! A powerful breath burst out along with a scolding sound. Mu Yang's face was resolute, and he stared at the sky with a serious face. The energy in his body gathered between his hands, and a dazzling blue light suddenly flashed in this place. In the small and claustrophobic space like a star, it blooms with brilliance. Success or failure is here. Heaven Heart Qigong. With a long whistle in the sky, Mu Yang swung forward with his 2 fingers, and a dazzling energy beam shot straight out. The blue energy squeaked and rubbed with the air to make a sharp pop, and then penetrated through the layers of clouds and mist, directed at an area with the thickest clouds in the center shot away. Boom! The blue energy beam hit the core of the ceiling and then collided, causing an earth-shattering explosion. Mayang's Qigong wave at this time is more solid than a few months ago, and its penetrating power and destructive power have doubled. On these basis, the Qigong wave released by Mayang is very terrifying. The terrifying scene produced by the collision of the two was as violent and mighty as if the world had opened up. The vortex rotates, the airflow is scattered, and the center is raised high like an upside-down morning glory. Clap sounds like glass breaking. At this moment, the sky collapsed, and the endless clouds suddenly seemed to have lost the cover of the lid. At this moment, they all burst open, and the whole space was shaking violently as if it was about to collapse. Nothing could stop the tearing force of the explosion, and it began to expand the space. Mayang himself was exhausted after releasing the Qigong wave, but strangely, the terrifying energy did not harm him. On the contrary, crystal fragments fell from the sky, falling on him, and then they were all absorbed by him. Time passed, and when all the dust fell to the ground and the earth returned to peace, the hazy sight became bright again. The picture that appeared in front of him shocked Mu Yang. The sky has become higher and the ground has become wider. The original 10-meter radius has expanded to a 1-kilometer radius, which is enough to accommodate the next small mountain. At the same time, just as the acceleration space continued to expand, Mu Yang vaguely felt that the shackles that had bound him earlier seemed to disappear, and the road ahead seemed to be smoother, and it felt completely different from before. It was a prisoner's experience of breaking free from the cage and regaining his freedom. I used the energy detector to detect myself die. A string of data was displayed on the lens. 121 combat power. In an instant, the combat power increased by more than 20 points, reaching the level after Sun Wukong participated in the 21st World's #1 martial arts tournament. It's really a big breakthrough. This acceleration space is really closely related to my strength. Is that ceiling blocking the sky because of my physical limitations? The ceiling is approaching the ground, which means that the distance limit is getting closer and closer, and breaking it with one force is breaking the limit. All the changes made Mayang have to think about it. Normally, the limit of ordinary people on Earth is 100 combat power. Very few people on Earth have successfully broken through this limit, but this acceleration space where Mayang's consciousness communicates seems to be able to show their own limits. Embody the invisible limit, and then unleash a real attack to break the limit. How wonderful is this existence? After an ordinary person breaks through the limit, the improvement of combat power has to be accumulated a little bit. In short, that is, after 100 it is 101 and then 102 and he breaks through and absorbs the energy of breakthrough and reaches 121 in one breath. After figuring this out, Mu Yang couldn't help but cheer up. If the truth is as he imagined, then he is too dominant. This means that he no longer has to worry about the innate gap between people on Earth and people in the universe. Saiyans and cosmic beings can be so strong. What is the reason, and is it not because their potential is strong enough? Earth people are weak, but as long as they work hard enough, it is not impossible to break through multiple limits. Compared with this point, the time acceleration function of accelerated space is only a trivial pediatrics. This is the real golden finger. Of course, this is just Mu Yang's own guess. No one knows what the specific situation is. And even if Mu Yang's guess is correct, the acceleration space can really show the limit of the body. If you want to break the limit like you just did, you can't be successful. After all, for people on Earth, the limit of 100 combat power is not impossible to break. The difficulty is the 1000 combat power behind 10,000 combat power. Whether it can really continue to break through indefinitely, in the final analysis, it still has to fall on the racial talent. But at least for now, this gave Mu Yang some thoughts. After leaving the acceleration space, Mu Yang's mood could not calm down for a long time. After his test, the time flow between the acceleration space and the outside world broke the first limit as he broke the first limit, and the ratio of the two sides changed from the original 2 to 1 to 1, 4 to 1. That is, the time velocity in the accelerated space is now 4 times that of the outside world. At the same time, there is an additional storage function in the acceleration space. It is simple and easy to put things in the acceleration space. Even if there is no universal capsule, he does not have to worry about the things that cannot be put away, and because there is the nourishment of energy free in the space, and do not worry about the deterioration of the contents inside, it is simply a must-have for home travel. This is my biggest gain in recent time. Mu Yang was so happy that he laughed in his sleep. The next day, when Immortal Cat saw Mu Yang again, he clearly felt the change in him. After one night of absence, the spiritual outlook of Mu Yang seemed to be different. It's only been one night and you've changed quite a bit. Immortal Mao was puzzled. Mayang is like a spring breeze with a warm smile. I figured out some things last night and I feel that the whole person is different. Oh, you have an understanding in your heart and you have broken through the shackles of martial arts. Immortal Mao nodded. The epiphany thing is very mysterious, but it is not that Immortal Mao has not seen it for 800 years. It was a chance, and the cat fairy was also happy for Mayang. Mayang nodded. His practice of breaking the restrictions in the acceleration space and the epiphany said by the cat fairy are really similar. Immortal Mao said, since your strength has grown a lot, then you need to make a little change in your next practice. Today you will spend time familiarizing yourself with the strength of growth and I will treat you when you can manage it freely. Give pointers. Mayang nodded. Thank you, Immortal Kailan. Just when Mayang started to practice on the Kailan Tower, there was an island in the east of the earth. Tug tug tug. The sound of firearms broke the tranquility of the island. More than a dozen speedboats were cruising around the island with heavily armed teams standing on them, all dressed in earth-gray uniforms looking like both an army and a robber. Boss Lusha, the team sent out has returned and they haven't found Claren's whereabouts. A soldier-like man took off the radio microphone on his ear and reported to their commander. The officer took a puff of cigarette and exhaled a choking wisp of white smoke. He glanced at the soldier fiercely and scolded fiercely, "Won't you send more people if you can't find someone? Claren, even if he dies, take what's on him back." The soldier shuddered and responded quickly, "Yes, I will send additional staff to the island immediately." "Not yet." Chief Lusha waved his hand impatiently, then sat there and continued to smoke. It's true that Commander Win is just a little researcher. What is there in his hands that is worth looking for with such fanfare? Forget it, I'm just in charge of the task and can't control the affairs of the upper class. Lu Sha squeezed out the cigar in his hand and report the situation here to the headquarters. What he got was an order from the headquarters to seek at all costs. "Hey, these officials can only give orders and it's not our subordinates who do things." After hanging up the phone, Lu Sha spat sullenly. Thinking that the frontline commander of his Ophiuchus Corps was actually responsible for such a trivial task, he felt uneasy. At this time on the island, a blonde-haired man was hunched over holding a child in his arms, hiding in a small wood. If Mu Yang was here, he would recognize that this blonde man was one of the young couples he met on the train to Maple Leaf Island a few months ago. The child in his arms was a little girl named April. At this time, Claren's chest was broken and the scarlet blood had stained the shirt. "Cough!" Claren hunched over and coughed, the tiny movements twitching the wounds in his lungs making him look very painful. "Woo-woo, Dad, are you all right?" April misses her mother and sister. The little girl April, with tears in her eyes, sobbed softly. "Don't cry, April, Mom and Cypriel will be fine." Claren wiped April's tears with a hint of sadness in her eyes. April raised her head, "But the cruise ship we were on has sunk and my mother and sister have not come up." "Whoa, they can't come back." Claren's expression stiffened for a while and what she wanted to say was finally swallowed in her throat, but she couldn't say it. At this moment the sound of sweeping came from the woods and Claren quickly covered April's small mouth. After the sweepers were far away, Claren made up her mind and he put a thick drawing. He and 3 black stones were stuffed into the small bag behind April. "April, keep these things well, this is Dad's research materials." A trace of grief flashed in Claren's eyes. If it weren't for these things, their family might not have suffered from this disaster. "Dad," April felt an uneasy call. Claren is a researcher at a comprehensive research institute, and he is engaged in robotics research. As for what the 3 black stones are, he doesn't know. They were peeled off from a meteorite in outer space. Claren didn't expect that his research results would actually attract the coveting of senior officials of the Ophiuchus Legion. Their cruise ship was attacked by the other party during the voyage. His wife and young daughter fell into the sea and never appeared again. He put his palm on April's head. "Be obedient. There is a small cave over there. You hide in it. Don't come out without my call." "Yeah," whispering softly, April's tears fell. "Take it. This is your favorite candy. Eat one when you're sad. Save it." Claren looked at her daughter, peeled off a candy and stuffed it into her mouth with difficulty, and then stored her daughter's snacks, stuffed sugar bowl into her little bag. After doing this, Claren dragged her weak body and gradually walked away. "Remember, don't leave that cave for 2 days. "Yeah," April replied with a weeping voice. Claren stared deeply at her daughter for the last time, turned and walked out of the grove. Only when he drew all the enemies away would April have a chance of survival. After Claren left, there was a sound of musket shooting in the woods. The sky gradually darkened and a thin mist rose in the woods. April hid in a small cave and waited for her father to come back, but after waiting for 2 or 3 days, Claren still did not come back. After carefully covering the sugar bowl and putting it in her school bag, April dragged her thin body out of the cave. The cold wind howled coldly with a faint sadness and gradually rolled farther and farther away. April shrank and staggered towards the people on the island. Unkalen Tower. Since breaking through the first limit, Mu Yang is like a different person. He used to be trapped in his own shackles and the speed of cultivation is like getting on a plane and it changes every day. In the 3rd month, Maying grabbed the kettle from the cat fairy. "Oh, when did you become so powerful?" After Mu Yang took away the kettle, Immortal Mao looked at him in amazement. The boy's growth shocked him and it only took 3 months, and snatched the kettle from his hands. To know that the last turtle immortal who grabbed the kettle took 3 years, it was fast. Where Fairy Kalen has won the prize, this is what you taught. Tisk, don't put a tall hat on me. Immortal Mao glanced at Mu Yang, swaying his fat body. I have already taught you the basics that I can teach you, and the next third stage, the convergence and perception of Qi, is a more profound thing. In terms of stage, you can only learn the restraint of Qi. As for perception, it is beyond the stage of martial arts. Ma Yang listened carefully. The convergence of Qi is far easier than perception, and it is only necessary to understand the state of mind as still water, and the perception of Qi involves deeper mysteries, and it is necessary to control the fluctuation of the breath to the smallest degree. That is the stage of a temple practitioner. The cat immortal can only learn the restraint of Qi here. If you want to learn to use Qi to perceive the opponent, you must either comprehend it yourself or get the approval of the cat immortal, get the token leading to the temple, and go to the heaven to practice. So now, Mu Yang is still obediently following the cat fairy to learn the control of breath. Time is like fine sand, passing by inadvertently. In the blink of an eye, half a month has passed. Under the guidance of the cat fairy, Ma Yang has been growing rapidly. While constantly absorbing the essence of the cat fairy martial arts, Ma Yang has gradually grasped the connotation of Qi. At this time, his breath can be restrained, and finally he is no longer as sharp as before. Oh, I have nothing to teach you. The cat fairy looked at Mu Yang like a monster. This kid is simply a monster. It only took more than 3 months to make himself teachable. This kind of talent is definitely one of the best among the people on Earth. However, Immortal Mao didn't know that all of this was because Ma Yang had a cheating device called acceleration space. Ma Yang accepted all the compliments from Immortal Cat. He smiled and said, "I've troubled Immortal during this time." Hi. The cat immortal nodded while holding the beard. It's not too much trouble. The purpose of Kalen Tower's existence is to cultivate excellent martial artists. It's a pity that the year is not as good as the year and no one can climb up. By the way, Fairy Kalen, I see that you have been eating a kind of dried and flat beans these days. Can that stuff fill your stomach? The cat immortal glanced at Mu Yang. Oh, those are immortal beans. You can eat one without eating for 10 days. Mu Yang's eyes lit up. Of course he knew that it was the fairy bean, which was very precious in the later stage of Dragon Ball, but now it is only used to fill the stomach and it does not reflect its value. Oh, Fairy Kalen, there are such good things. Why do you still let me eat flour every day? This is too much. Cough, that's a kind of cultivation for you. Those who practice martial arts must endure hardships. Eating flour is a tradition handed down from ancient times. A look of contempt swept across the face. Even the cat fairy himself. I'm embarrassed to go on. There's no way. The output of fairy beans is not high. The output is only about 60 a year, and I have to consume about 40 per year, which is really not much. Well, Immortal Kylan, let's discuss, or I'll go downstairs now and bring you a batch of aquatic products. I think the ability of immortals can definitely keep aquatic products fresh. I will use these aquatic products to exchange immortal beans with you. What do you think? Mu Yang squinted his eyes, thinking about his own small abacus. The Kalen Tower can store flour, and there is no reason not to store other things. Since the role of fairy beans is only to satisfy hunger, what does it matter if they are replaced with water products? Besides, fairy beans have no taste. How can they be so rich in aquatic products? If you open a small stove, is there any fragrant smell every day? Aquatic products. Sure enough, upon hearing that Mu Yang was going to exchange water products for fairy beans, Immortal Cat's eyes suddenly widened and his pupils almost lit up. But in order to maintain the immortal's restraint, it pretended to be calm and said, "This idea is not bad. It is not convenient for me to leave Kalen Tower on weekdays. If you are willing to do it for me, it is not unthinkable." Done, Mu Yang shouted in his heart, as if he saw a large number of fairy beans waving at him. Kellen Immortal, how many immortal beans do you plan to exchange? Mu Yang asked cautiously. Of course, the more the better. It's enough for me to keep a little and replace the rest. Wait a minute, I'll see how many fairy beans there are. Speaking of which, the cat fairy walked to the bottom of the Kalen Tower and began to search through boxes and cabinets. Finally, a large brown clay pot was found in the innermost part. The red word Zyandu was pasted on the pot. After opening it, it was full of emerald green dried beans, roughly estimated to be around 15,000 or 6,000. There are so many. At this time, Mu Yang couldn't help but secretly resented how many immortal beans was wasted by that dead fat man Yaki Loeb, so that the later son Wukong and the others wanted to eat one and how many people had to share it. That's all. This is what I have saved for more than 800 years. Now the output of fairy beans is getting lower and lower. I want to keep a few thousand for preparation and the rest will be replaced by aquatic products for you. Speaking of this cat fairy, he stopped and his ears twitched. Of course, fairy beans are full your aquatic products. Enough, Mu Yang did not hesitate. Well then there's no problem, Immortal Mao nodded with satisfaction. One fairy bean is enough for 10 days of meals. If the aquatic products in exchange can't last for 10 days, then the deal is unfair. He took out an empty pottery pot from the side and the cat Immortal filled it with immortal beans and said, "Actually, these immortal beans are much better than the food on the ground, and they are very suitable for use after martial arts practice and for fighting enemies. It can also play its role when it is. Do you know why? Because it works fast, it can quickly restore physical strength." Mayang answered truthfully. The Xiandu's hunger-satisfying function alone is a very good weapon, not to mention that it also has a healing function, but the cat fairy may not have been injured, I don't know. Good. Immortal Mao looked back at him and found that Mayang was very good at grasping the key to the problem. He couldn't help but nodded secretly inside. Speaking of aquatic products, they don't have such a good function. The cat's paw paused for a moment, and Mu Yang was anxious. He calmly said, "The immortal is right, I thought about it and it seems like this is the case, but I can provide more aquatic products to ensure that the immortal is satisfied. And we also have a kind of stove on the ground which can bake all kinds of fragrant fragrances. I will bring one to the immortal when I go down." "Haha, it's rare that you have this kind of intention, so bring me one." Immortal cat squinted and smiled. Seeing the cat claw start to put fairy beans into the clay pot again, Mu Yang wiped his sweat and thought to himself, the cat fairy is really not a good fellow and he actually knows how to bargain, but fortunately the business in the world is unsuccessful, mainly because of money not in place. When the money is in place, the business is done. More than 10,000 fairy beans. Watching the cat fairy put thousands of fairy beans into another pot, Mu Yang only felt his lips were dry and his eyes were shining, full of burning desire. Mu Yang swallowed and took the clay pot filled with fairy beans from the immortal cat's hands with some trembling. Xiandu did not show much value in the early stage of Dragon Ball. It was only used as food to satisfy hunger, but in the later stage it was a real life-saving magic weapon. It can not only quickly restore physical strength but also instantly treat various injuries. At this time Xiandu it hasn't been ruined by Yaki Liuob, and most of it has been taken by Mu Yang. Eat one first and taste. Mayang thought about taking out a dried lentil bean from the clay pot and throwing it into his mouth to chew it up. There was a crisp sound of click, and it really didn't have any taste, but the next moment, a strong vitality suddenly filled the mouth, and then this vitality flowed through the whole body. Under the flow of this warmth, Mu Yang's mental state instantly returned to its peak. "Good baby, these are life-saving bobbies." Mu Yang's eyes lit up and praised repeatedly. "Carefully place the pot, close the lid, and carefully store it as if you were holding a sacred object bestowed by the gods. Each of the more than 10,000 fairy beans must be carefully calculated and used on the blade." Alas, the thousands of immortal cats were wasted too, and sooner or later they will be ruined by Yaki Liubai. Mu Yang took an inch and even wanted to get the thousands of immortal beans reserved in the hands of Immortal Mao. But in the end, he gave up. Forget it, it's not easy to get most of it and things can't be perfect. Thinking of this in his heart, Mu Yang also felt a lot better. At this time, he saw 3 large water tanks placed next to them. These 3 water tanks were placed independently and separated from the other water tanks in the corner. "Fairy Kalen, why are those water tanks so divided?" He vaguely guessed the function of the water tanks. It is said that the 3 water tanks can see the past, present, and future respectively. "Oh, that's what I use to observe the lower world. The energy of these 3 water tanks is connected to the crystal ball upstairs. It is a sacred object passed down from ancient times." The cat Immortal swayed his fat body and opened one of them. The The lid on top of the water tank reveals clear, unwavering spring water. Oh, Mu Yang stepped forward with interest and looked at the clear spring water. He didn't know that the water in these three tanks was blended together, and there was a name he was familiar with. That is super divine water. The supernatural water can trigger the potential in the human body, and at the same time it is also highly poisonous. If there is not enough potential in the body, the supernatural water will overdraw the vitality of the human body and poison the user to death. It is rumored that 14 powerful earthlings once drank it, but none of them survived. Therefore, for Kao Shen Shui, Mu Yang kept it at a distance and he had no luck with this thing. Just as Mu Yang was staring at the water tank, ripples suddenly appeared in the spring water, and a group of strange pictures appeared in Mu Yang's sight. It was a sunny day. A dark green-haired little girl and a black-haired teenager appeared in the picture. At this time, the two were practicing their tricks very seriously, and their faces were covered with crystal sweat. Mayang recognized that it was a picture of himself and Mexia when they were children, so what he saw in this vat represented the past. So I lifted the lid of the tank in the middle and saw another picture. In the Dakingshan, the picture of the wife, Alice, cooking food in the kitchen, while in the living room, Isafar is reading with a newspaper which represents the present. When the last tank was opened, the picture that appeared was different. It was a crowded conference hall. It was very lively. The scene seemed to be a competition. At this time, there was a man and a woman on the ring. The man Mu Yang recognized himself as himself, looks a lot more mature than it is now, but it should be a few years away from now. Opposite him stood a black-haired woman who reached her waist. The woman had a well-proportioned figure and a vague appearance. Judging from her delicate and graceful curves, she should look like she was in her 20s, with a different aura all over her body. What especially attracted Mu Yang's attention was that the black-haired woman's eyes were as clear as spring water. At this time, the two were in a match, and the black-haired woman was majestic and continued to attack the future Mayang. This should be a picture of the future, and it seems that Mayang is still competing with someone. Then suddenly the screen changed, and the clip just now disappeared, replaced by a deep starry sky. The same is the picture of the battle, but instead it is a little girl of 11 or 12 years old. The girl also had black hair and her opponent was also Mu Yang. At this time the girl had a charming and naive expression, her eyes were full of arrogance, and then she snorted, and her golden pupils actually shone with a beautiful brilliance. But her opponent is not easy and she has never gained an advantage. Mu Yang frowned and looked at the picture of the future. This picture of the future was mindless. What surprised him was that he couldn't even see how the two sides shot. Judging from this picture, Mu Yang felt that he would still be quite powerful in the future. He asked Fairy Kalen, "What does this picture of the future mean?" Immortal Mao licked his palm and said, "It doesn't make any sense because no one can tell what will happen in the future. This tank is only one of the possibilities, and everyone will see different pictures when they look at it. No need to care." If he can't think of it, he doesn't think about it, and Mu Yang doesn't bother himself, but in general, he sees an aspect that is beneficial to him. "Hey Mayang, you've already taken the fairy beans. When will you cash out the aquatic products you mentioned?" Immortal Mao kept thinking about the transaction with Mayang and saw that he was no longer obsessed with what he saw in the three-water tank. Screen hurriedly urged. Mayang smiled. It seems that the cat fairy has lived on the Kalen Tower for a long time and is very concerned about those aquatic products. Please rest assured, Immortal Kalen, I will do what I say and I will bring the aquatic products to you right away. Just as soon as possible. Immortal Cat stroked his beard and was no longer in a hurry. After conditioning on the Kailan Tower for a while, Mayang waved goodbye to Immortal Cat. "Immortal Kailan, I'll go down first and wait for my good news." After speaking, he stepped out with his feet and jumped directly from the Kailan Tower. When the strong wind blows in the face, Mayang seems to have turned into a flying swallow, splitting the storm all the way down. It was much easier to leave Kailan Tower than to climb up to Kailan Tower. The fierce wind was blowing on his face. Mu Yang narrowed his eyes and his falling speed was getting faster and faster. In the blink of an eye, a cloud layer was penetrated and the horizon gradually became flat from a curved state. Swish, a black shadow broke through the atmosphere and held up a long wake. Mayang began to approach the ground, and in less than 10 minutes the dense forest below gradually became clear. Looking at the splendid scenery in the distance, I couldn't help but feel the heroic feeling of the sky high and the birds flying. It took 4 days to climb the Kalen Tower, but it only took a few minutes to get down. I have already seen the big forest. When he was about to land, he took the brakes and the air dance stopped the falling speed, then turned 90 degrees, and with a bang he flew along the horizontal angle in the direction away from the holy land of Kailan. Go. Like all holy places, the existence of Kalen Holy Land is also very strange. It seems that there is a mysterious power so that those who want to climb Kalen Tower can only be effective by climbing from the bottom, otherwise even if they use high technology, they will not be able to climb. Kalenta, of course, was about the same when she came down. Hey, did a shadow fly past just now? Does it look like a person? At the edge of the Holy Land, the Indians who guarded Kalenta saw the back of Mu Yang leaving, and one of them asked suspiciously, "You've lost your eyes, how can people be so fast?" The nearby companions sneered. "Well, maybe I'm wrong." The man was stunned, then laughed. "Hey, those two over there take your hunting skills seriously. If you want to become the guardians of the Holy Land, take me even more seriously." The elder-looking Indian whispered and scolded when he saw two people hunting. Guardians like them are usually distributed in various parts of the Kalen Holy Land and survive in the form of tribes. Only the strong in the tribe, after being selected, are eligible to serve as guardians near Kalen Tower. Mayang didn't know that his behavior of traversing the Kailan Holy Land attracted the attention of the Indians. At this time he had already flown out of the Kailan Holy Land, but he was thinking about how to get aquatic products for the cat ferry. This is not a big problem. Mayang can go to the seaport to buy it. There are many kinds of sea fish there. It is guaranteed to satisfy the cat ferry, but the problem is, now that he has no money, the fishmonger will definitely not sell it to him. You can't always grab it. Mayang knew that there was an undersea treasure house in the original book, which contained all kinds of gold and silver treasures. He remembered that when Sun Wukong fought against the Red Ribbon Army, he was chased by General Bruce and he accidentally entered the treasure house. But unfortunately, Mayang doesn't know the exact location of the treasure, and it's still decades before that episode happened, so the treasure may not exist now. At this time, he had an idea and thought of Lan Chi and Leping in the original book, who started their family by robbing their families in their early years. Maybe I can go and rob them. The order on the earth is stable, but in many remote corners there are still gangs that specialize in illegal activities. Robbing them, Mayang will not be a little disturbed, just be rob the rich and help the poor, help me solve the immediate urgency. Of course, the places where the robbers exist are either in remote mountainous areas or where trade exchanges must pass, and they must be primitive and barren places that the police cannot control. Obviously, the latter must be more able to capture predators than the former. With this thought in his heart, Mu Yang had an idea and he began to look for the place where the robbers were active. After flying for more than an hour, Mayang came to a place where there was no village in front of him and no shop in the back. This is a place that connects two cities and is a must for businessmen. He flew in the sky and searched for a while, trying to find the robbers' trail, and soon found an old motorcycle speeding through the wilderness. The cyclist wore a red hood, a dark scarf around his neck, a large coat with patterns draped over his body, and a long knife straddled around his waist, as if he was afraid that others would not know that he was a robber. Following him all the way, Mayang found a cave at the bottom of a less ledge in which a group of robbers gathered. "You are the one you are looking for." When he finally found the target, Mu Yang's eyes lit up, so he stopped hiding and walked swaggeringly in front of the gang of robbers. "You people, hand over all the valuables in your hands." The sudden sound startled the robbers who were gathering to drink, but when he saw that it was a young boy who came in, his astonishment turned into a joke. "Ha ha ha, it's all Lao Tzu who robbed others. It's quite strange today. Where did the young boy come from?" And he didn't go to inquire about where this place is, but he didn't know how to rob this uncle. The leader of the robber looked ferocious, and with a bang he threw the pottery bowl in his hand, and a machete with a cold light lit up. At the same time he stepped on the half of the skull that was exposed to the sand, and the robber leader grinned. Little guys, don't take out the guy to show this kid, we are the professionals when it comes to killing people. Hey, the boss said yes. Idiot who doesn't know how to live or die. Seeing this, the other younger brothers also showed cruel smiles and pulled out their machetes in unison. The 20-odd people in the entire robber group lived a life of licking blood. In their eyes, there was no such thing as mercy. Killing people and stealing goods was a normal business, and there was no more lucrative business than this. Over the years, the number of innocent people who have died under their swords has long been unknown. Even if you add the young man in front of you, it is not too many. Mu Yang looked around and found a lot of corpses scattered in the cave. Looking at the robbers pulling their swords to force them over, the corners of his mouth couldn't help showing a hint of coldness. They are all outlaws. No wonder he's so brave. But they don't seem to understand who is robbing who today. Since you don't cooperate, don't blame me, and remember not to be so evil in your next life. Haha, this kid is joking. The gang of robbers looked at each other and laughed, but soon they stopped laughing. I saw Mayang snorted lowly, and in the next second he exerted some power. Suddenly a huge force rose from under his feet, and suddenly countless afterimages flashed in the cave. At this time Mayang seemed to be transformed into an Asura to start a frenzied killing. Facing Mu Yang, these robbers had no time to react. After a while he returned to the place as if the scene had never happened. Jingle bells rang, and the sound of metal falling to the ground sounded. The robbers opened their eyes wide and their eyeballs were full of bloodshots, but in the next second all the robbers fell to the ground with expressions of disbelief on their faces. It's not a pity to die. Mu Yang's voice was extremely indifferent and his eyes looked coldly ahead. Ah, don't kill me. Forgive me, I won't dare to offend you again, forgive me. Seeing that all the younger brothers around him were killed by the demon in front of him, the robber leader's psychological defense finally collapsed and he knelt on the ground and kept kowtowing. Mu Yang looked at him coldly and asked plainly, if I don't kill you, do I keep you to continue doing evil? People like you, even if you go to the underworld, you will go to hell. No, I'll give you all the treasure, give it all to you, please spare me. The robber leader was terrified and kept staggering back, but how could Mu Yang let him go so easily, only to see an afterimage flashing by? The robber chief screamed and ended his life. Looking at the corpses of these robbers, Mu Yang's expression was cold. Killing you all is considered to be killing the people. As for the treasure, it's not big here, can't I find it by myself? Glancing at the corpses at random, Mu Yang looked away and began to rummage in the cave. Finally, he found a large treasure chest in the innermost corner of the cave. He pried open the chain of the treasure chest and it was filled with golden light, gold, precious stones, and jewelry. These robbers usually rob houses and save lives, and the wealth they snatched up fills a treasure chest. Just by looking at these treasures, you can see that they kill a lot of people on weekdays. With a sigh in his heart, Mu Yang packed the treasures into his acceleration space together with the whole box. This acceleration space can be used for storage since Mayang broke through the first limit, but it takes a while to brew each time it is opened, so overall, the acceleration space can only be an auxiliary tool and cannot be used in battle. Bring convenience to Mayang. Glancing at the empty treasure house, Mu Yang nodded. These robbers have been busy for many years and even risked their lives in it, and finally they all made wedding clothes for themselves. After walking out of the cave, Mu Yang raised his hand and threw a qigong wave at the cave. With a loud bang, the cave collapsed suddenly. After doing this, he didn't look back and flew towards the nearby city. Before purchasing aquatic products, he first converted a part of the gold into currency. At the same time, a mountain range in the east of the earth. This is the headquarters of the Ophiuchus Corps. The towering buildings are like castles, the independent towers are magnificent, the blue tiles are dazzling, and they are particularly gorgeous in the sunlight. There are 3 steps and 1 post here, and the security is heavily guarded. Every soldier wears a uniform and patrols back and forth around the corner of the tower. Tang tang tang. A propeller plane hovered and slowly landed on the tarmac. Chief Lusha and his entourage jumped out of the plane and then walked into the castle with the guide. In a luxuriously decorated hall, Chief Lusha met their commander-in-chief. It was a burly orc with cyan hair, pointed mouth and fangs, and was extremely ferocious. That was the highest commander of the Ophiuchus Legion, Commander Win. At this time, Commander Win tore the piece of meat in his hand, took a bite and swallowed it, and then slammed the next bottle of wine. Commander Win, Chief Lusha stood respectfully and saluted. Commander Win glanced at Chief Lusha lightly. How is the business I explained to you? What about the design drawings? Officer Lusha was sweating profusely. Commander, the blueprint has not been found. Didn't find it? Then why are you coming back? Don't hurry to find it. Commander Win looked at Lu Sha coldly. Senhan's eyes were as daunting as the eyes of a demon, which made Lu Sha feel like he was facing death. Commander Win asked with a gloomy face, what about Claren, where is it now? Already dead, Lu Sha said bitterly. Bang! Commander Win smashed the wine bottle in his hand fiercely, and suddenly the blood-red wine splashed on the ground. Why are you doing things? I ask you to do anything at all costs and you give me such a result. Do you know how important the blueprint in his hand is? It's the design drawing of the robot. As long as we get the blueprint, our Ophiuchus Legion we will be able to continuously produce robots and form a powerful fighting army. And don't say anything about the United Kingdom, the whole world will look at our faces. That Claren was very cunning. When his subordinates sent people to hunt him down, he was shot and killed by a soldier. Lu Sha said cautiously. Get rid of that soldier, it's a bastard. Commander Win flashed a wicked look in the beast's eyes, and Officer Lu Sha's face sank when he heard the words, and cold sweat broke out from his back and said anxiously, Claren was beside him when he fled. There is also a girl, maybe the drawing is on the girl. Then what are you waiting for? Hurry up and find it. Lusha, give you another chance to retrieve the blueprint or you will know the consequences. Yes, Chief Lu Sha shuddered, replied repeatedly, and then withdrew from the hall respectfully. After exiting the hall, Lu Sha felt a chill behind him, and sweat soaked his clothes. Boss, what should we do now? The entourage around him was pale, and every time he met Commander Win, he felt a sense of parting from life and death. What else can we do? Hurry to find it, mobilize all our strength, and be sure to get the blueprint back. Lu Sha spit and said gloomily, and the soldier who did not succeed, who asked him to shoot. Really kill him, the servant swallowed. If you don't kill him, I and you will both be shot, Chief Lu Sha said fiercely. This is his last chance. There is no mercy within the Ophiuchus Legion. If he can't get the blueprint back, he believes that the commander will never let him go. The sea breeze is lingering and the beautiful seascape is reflected in the eyes. As the gulls quack across the water, spread their wings and fly, the small island by the far sea has entered a new day. Early in the morning, the fog is churning. Farmers on the island got up early, carrying hoes, driving cattle and horses in the countryside. Although the earth has begun to enter the age of science and technology, most places are still not illuminated by science and technology, and are still in a very primitive farming era, and work basically depends on physical strength. Beside a gurgling stream, a thin figure squatted by the stream with a school bag on his back, carefully washing her little sugar bowl with water. April has been wandering on this small island for more than a month. Because of the long wandering, her neat clothes have been stained with stains and some places have even been broken. The voice from her stomach indicated that she was very hungry. When she touched her belly, April pouted and looked aggrieved. Because she was still young and ignorant and thin, she had no ability to find food, so she could only rely on the salvage life of the islanders. Holding the small sugar jar in her arms tightly, there was nothing in it, and she ate the last candy a few days ago. Dad, Mom, Cepriel? April called out helplessly, tears rolling in her eyes. Then she opened her school bag and carefully put the sugar bowl in. Seeing the dazzling smoke rising in the distance, she flattened his mouth and ran towards the village. Knock, knock, knock. A farmhouse heard a knock on the door, and the old woman opened the door and saw a timid little girl standing in front of her. Grandma, I'm so hungry, can you give me something to eat? April blushed and tugged at the corner of her clothes. The old woman saw that the little girl with pink and jade clothes was in a mess, as if she had suffered a catastrophe, and she felt pity and brought April into the house and served her a dish that was not very rich. The food in the countryside is very rough and the taste is not as good as the food in the city, but April was so hungry she devoured it, and when she choked she hammered her chest hard. What a poor child, how could you be alone, your parents? The old woman asked, looking at April's pitiful look. There are a lot of bad people chasing them, are gone, April said while eating, and she couldn't help crying when she was sad. Alas, Tilda, the old woman sighed. From the little girl's words she could tell that her parents were no longer there. This is the way of the world. Although the United Kingdom has been established for more than 100 years, there are still many places where there are rebels. Power. Grandma, do you have any candy here? I want candy. April lowered her head, her face blushing. But when she thought of the sweetness of the candy, she seemed to recall the warmth of being with her family. She remembered that after eating the candy a few days ago, she saw her parents in her dream. The old woman was stunned for a moment and said, "We are in the countryside, unlike the city where there are candies for sale, but we have honey here. Why don't you try it?" "Thank you," April thanked politely. The old woman smiled and kindly brought out a jar of honey from the hut. It was wild honey with high nutritional value. "Come on, try it." "Oops, it's so sweet." April's eyes lit up as she put a drop in her mouth. "If you like it, these are for you." Really? April was overjoyed. She took out the small sugar bowl from her school bag, carefully poured honey into the sugar bowl and closed the lid. "Thank you, Grandma," she politely grateful. The old woman looked at the little girl's well-behaved appearance and couldn't help but have the idea of adopting, but April shook her head. She didn't want to stay on this small island. "Oh, what a cute little guy." Looking at April, who bowed to her and left, the old woman said with emotion. On the other side, after April had filled her stomach, she walked towards the port in a dazed way. She blinked her eyes and lowered her head as she listened to the shouts coming from near the port, in a merchant ship. "Eh?" On the other hand, after Mayang grabbed all the gold and silver treasures of the robbers, he flew all the way to a nearby city and found an exchange in the city, and exchanged part of the gold and silver treasures into common currency. "Sir, you have brought a total of 0.2 tons of gold and 120 pieces of jewelry, which is 110 million earth coins in total. Do you want cash or a savings card?" After finishing the calculation, the owner of the exchange wiped away sweat and shivered. Quoted price. Mu Yang smiled lightly, but he didn't expect that a little bit of gold and silver treasure he took out could actually be exchanged for so much currency, which shows how many people the robbers robbed. "Exchange 2 million earth coins for me, and the rest will be stored in the card." Yes, I'll handle it for you right away." The boss replied repeatedly, wiped his sweat and asked the staff to help bring 2 million in cash from the vault. He should take care of such a big customer. Mayang smiled and took the savings card and a tin box full of cash, then waved his hand. "This earth coin is issued by the United Kingdom and it is used worldwide. Its purchasing power is similar to that of the RMB in the previous life. With this money, he can completely stop worrying about money." Sure enough, the most profitable industries are written in criminal law. After leaving the exchange, Mu Yang thought about it and went to the seafood market, preparing to buy hundreds of tons of sea fish for Mao Xianren. After all, he took more than 10,000 fairy beans from the cat fairy, and he always had to express it. He generously threw out a stack of banknotes, and the fishmongers immediately enthusiastically collected 180 tons of seafood for him. This transaction almost swept the fresh goods in the market, and then packed them in big baskets and helped them to deliver them. A remote alley. There, Mayang opened the acceleration space and put all the sea fish in it. This time, the cat fairy should be satisfied. "Hey, I exchanged these sea fish for more than 10,000 fairy beans, which is a huge profit." This is the benefit of information asymmetry. If it is in the era after the plot begins, Sun Wukong and the others all know the importance of fairy beans. Even if he spends a lot of money, don't even think about getting a fairy bean. Humming happily, Mayang went to the market to buy a stove and some fuel, and then flew into the air, rushing towards the Kalin Tower again. Compared with the vehicles that are falling behind, the skill of air dance is undoubtedly environmentally friendly and faster. From the perspective of actual combat and practicality, it is listed as an equally important skill as Turtle Qigong and Dingdongbo. Not too much. As the surrounding scenery quickly swept back, Mu Yang kept flying at a high speed, and soon the slender tower of Kylin Tower appeared in sight. Approaching Kalin Tower, Mayang began to slow down and landed at the bottom of Kalin Tower. "Take out the sea fish first," Otherwise, it won't be easy to explain to immortal cat if you go up empty-handed. Thinking so, Mu Yang opened the acceleration space swiftly, and suddenly a whole 180 baskets of sea fish appeared in the open space. A unique fishy smell of seafood spreads. At this time, he noticed that there were many people gathered around, and he turned his head to find that it was the Indians who guarded Kalinta, and it was Oz who was leading the bow and arrow. "Hey, you are the young man who challenged Kalinta before, Mayang with a heart of heaven." Oz looked at him with puzzled eyes, especially when he saw the sea fish with a strong smell around him. His eyes were even more puzzled. "What's the situation? Shouldn't he be challenging Kalinta? What does it mean to bring so many sea fish?" Mayang nodded to Oz and the others. "Long time no see." "These fish." Mu Yang smiled and said, "This is a gift for immortal Kylan, and it just so happens that you are here. Can you take care of it for me? I'll come when I go." "A gift for immortal Kylan?" Os was stunned for a moment, then he reacted after a while and said tremblingly, "Could it be? Have you seen immortal Kylan?" "Yes, I climbed to the top of the tower and I was fortunate enough to accept the advice of immortal Kylan." Mu Yang nodded with a smile and admitted frankly. "Congratulations, you actually climbed the Kalan Tower. Legend has it that no one has succeeded in 100 years." Oz was awe-inspiring, and at this time he had completely regarded Mayang as a legendary martial artist. When Os and Mu Yang were talking, the guardians behind him all squinted and talked one after another. "Really or not, it actually succeeded. This boy is really unusual. I don't know what immortal Kylan looks like, but unfortunately we are not qualified to meet." As the guardians of the Holy Land, these Indians grew up listening to the legend of Fairy Kalan since childhood. Due to their limited strength, they have never been able to see Fairy Kalan as they wished, and of course they could not see the true face of Fairy Kalan. At this moment, when he heard that the young man in front of him actually climbed up the Kalan Tower and saw the Kalan immortal, all of them showed an expression of admiration. Mu Yang smiled secretly. Of course he wouldn't tell the story that immortal Kylan was a big white cat. That would be too unpleasant. Everyone has dreams in their hearts, and they will put the best expectations in the softest place in their hearts, whether it is people or things or some memories. After the precipitation of time, they become more and more beautiful. Maybe these things are no longer real and objective, but they have too many emotions and become precious. It is very immoral to rashly tell the truth to pierce other people's illusions. Mu Yang thought for a moment and said, "Immortal Kylan is a very wise immortal. Under his guidance, my strength has grown by leaps and bounds." Os nodded as expected and then pointed to the sea fish and asked, "How are you going to move these?" "It is already very difficult to climb up to the Kalan Tower. If you bring these baskets of sea fish, it will become even more difficult." "This is also a kind of cultivation, isn't it?" Mu Yang said with a smile, then walked towards the baskets and picked up one of them in full view of the crowd. About a ton of weight came from his arm. Mu Yang frowned, not because of the weight but the strong fishy smell coming from the basket. Then the toes slammed, bang! A rude impact rose from the soles of his feet, and with this force, Mu Yang flew up by himself, rising straight up along the edge of Kalan Tower and soon disappeared into the vast sky. Below, Oz and the others were dumbfounded, staring at the sky that had been split open by the whirlwind. It took a while to regain consciousness and said dryly, "As expected of the person who successfully challenged Kalinta, he is too strong. Do you think that his strength is more powerful than the last time?" Someone said that, and everyone else reacted yes. When the other party climbed the Kalan Tower a few months ago, it was not so good. It has only been more than 3 months and it is not the same. Could this be the ability of immortal Kylan? Thinking of this, these guardians are all very envious and have strong expectations for climbing the Kalan Tower. Just thinking of the difficulty of climbing the Kalan Tower made me feel a little discouraged. At this point, the top of Kalan Tower. The cat fairy was lying on the small reclining chair, dozing off. Suddenly it felt something, turned over and got off the reclining chair, put up crutches and came to the entrance of the top of the Kylian Tower, and after a while he saw Mu Yang carrying a large basket. The fish came up. "These sea fish, there are so many." The cat fairy's nose is very sensitive and he quickly recognized that it was a fish in the sea. He grabbed one of them with his claws and put it in front of his nose to smell it, and immediately showed an intoxicated expression. The unpleasant fishy smell that others felt became delicious here at the Cat Fairy. Mu Yang smiled and said, "Immortal Kylan, this is only a small part of it. There are 179 copies of such fish under the Kylan Tower." Immortal Mao's eyes lit up when he heard the words and said happily, "Okay, Mayang, you really keep your promise. It's just Fairy Kylan, how do you plan to store these fish?" "Well, this is a small problem, you come with me." The cat Immortal grabbed a fish and put it outside, then brought the rest of the fish to the martial arts field on the second floor and stopped at the crystal ball in the center. He pointed to the crystal ball and said, "Look at that crystal ball. It is a treasure passed down from ancient times, and the stability of Kalen Tower is maintained by it." Saying that, the cat fairy jumped up and touched the surface of the crystal ball. The crystal ball suddenly shone brightly. At the same time, all the sea fish on the ground disappeared. The cat Immortal squinted and said, "This crystal ball has the function of storage, and things will not deteriorate when placed in it." "It's really a good treasure." Mu Yang looked at it in surprise. Speaking of which, there are quite a lot of treasures on Earth. On the Kalen Tower alone, there are fairy beans, super divine water, crystal balls, somersault clouds, and wishful sticks. Wait, but now the Rui stick has been given to the turtle fairy as a gift by the cat fairy. "Hey Mayang, why don't you hurry up and bring up the fish under Kalen Tower? This is also a kind of cultivation." "Practice is practice, but why do I think you care more about those fish?" Mu Yang couldn't help but rolled his eyes when he heard it, but he didn't show it, nodded and jumped off the Kalen Tower, carrying it back and forth hundreds of times. When he brought all the sea fish up, it was noon the next day. But there is one thing that Immortal Cat is right. This process is indeed a kind of cultivation. He feels that after going back and forth a few times, his strength has improved a little and his combat power has increased from 128 to 132. Although it is only a few points of combat power, as the saying goes, no matter how small a mosquito's legs are, it is still meat. P.S. Do you have a book list? Please add a book. In addition, if you have any author friends, please come to a chapter. Well, it's very good. You are quite reliable in your work. I'm very satisfied. After storing all the aquatic products in the crystal ball with satisfaction, the cat fairy blinked at Mu Yang with a mysterious face. "Look at you, for the sake of the potential, I can give you a promise." "What promise?" Mu Yang asked curiously. "Haha, my promise is not light." The cat Immortal narrowed his eyes and said leisurely, "If you can persevere and continue to practice, when I think it is appropriate, I will take you to a more advanced place. Let me tell you, that place is not even qualified to go to the immortal turtle. Do you have any heart?" "Oh right, the turtle immortal I'm talking about is Wushan, and he is called the god of martial arts by you below." Afraid that Mayang didn't know who the turtle immortal was, the cat immortal explained it again. "Teacher Wu Tian." Mu Yang was silent, and at the same time he didn't understand that the mysterious place that Immortal Cat said was the temple. It's him, even he is not qualified to go. For warriors, that is the real holy place. "Do you want to go? As long as you get my approval, you can go." Immortal Mao patted Mu Yang on the shoulder, a very optimistic look of him. "If there is such a place, of course I want to go." Now that Immortal Cat took the initiative to mention the matter of the temple, Mu Yang stopped beating around the bush, showing his white teeth cheerfully and directly expressing his attitude. To say that the place on Earth that can increase its strength the most, the temple definitely ranks first. Here, Immortal Cat also figured out Mu Yang's attitude and couldn't help but smile. From Mu Yang's point of view, he hoped that Immortal Cat would recommend him to the temple one day, and Immortal Mao also had the consideration of recommending talents to enter the temple. Hundreds of years ago, he thought Immortal Turtle had this qualification, but unfortunately he didn't make it in the end. Speaking of which, it has been a long time since no one on Earth has boarded the temple, and it has to be said that it is a pity. "Kellen Immortal, when do you think I can reach the level that you recognize?" Mu Yang asked. The cat fairy said, "This is not good, it depends on your next efforts." "Hey, I don't think this day is too far away," Mu Yang said with a smile. "You are quite confident." Immortal Mao looked at Mu Yang. "Aren't practitioners just about having confidence in themselves?" "Quite a bit of my pretense, why should I explain it to you?" The cat immortal was stunned for a while, then nodded, "Yes, it is a good thing to forge ahead. I hope you don't make me wait too long." The cat immortal has experience with Mayang's monster-like cultivation speed, and he must. If there is anyone on Earth who can get its approval, then Mayang is definitely one. Turning around and returning to the bottom floor of Kalen Tower, the cat fairy built a bonfire in a corner and then put a few sea fish on the shelf, intending to make a sumptuous meal to treat herself. Soon, the fishy smell of sea fish gradually dissipated in the barbecue, followed by an attractive fragrance. Smelling the fragrance, Immortal Cat narrowed his eyes, intoxicated, grabbed one of the fish and ate it in 3 or 2 bites. "It's delicious." The cat fairy's lips and teeth were fragrant, licking her palm and grabbed another one. "Immortal Kylan, I heard that the reason why Teacher Wu Tian is called the god of martial arts is not only because of his high martial arts skills, but also rumors that he has lived for more than 200 years. Human beings can really live that much? How long?" Sitting on the ground, Mu Yang, who was also eating grilled fish, asked curiously while eating. In fact, Mayang has been thinking about how to improve his lifespan. The cat immortal was eating grilled fish and said vaguely, "The guy from the turtle immortal did live a little longer, but ordinary humans can't live to that age." Then why did the turtle immortal live so long? Not only the first 200 years, but Mayang also knew that Immortal Turtle could continue to live for a longer time. Even if the entire Dragon Ball plot ended, when Bulma in the original book had wrinkles, Immortal Turtle still looked like an old dragon. It looked as if he would sink into the ground at any time, but his body was actually quite good. Mu Yang suspected that even if all the Dragon Ball warriors died, he would still be able to live well. There must be a reason for him to live such a long life. Immortal Cat put down the fish in his hand and said, "That's because Immortal Turtle has taken the elixir of life." "Is there really an elixir of life in this world?" Mu Yang asked in surprise. He thought that the rumor of the elixir was just nonsense, but he didn't expect that Immortal Turtle actually ate it. "I used to have it before and I have eaten it. This is an elixir specially prepared for the immortals stationed in Kalen Tower. One pill can prolong life by 400 years. When the turtle fairy stayed on Kalen Tower, I begged me with shame, and I couldn't help but gave him 4, so I didn't have any stock here." Speaking of this, the cat fairy faintly regretted it. He shouldn't have been so generous to the turtle immortal in the first place. The production of elixir is very difficult and requires the use of a very special herb, but that herb is very scarce, and the cat fairy cannot make a new batch of elixir for a while. After listening to the cat fairy's explanation, Mu Yang couldn't help twitching at the corners of his mouth. How bad this cat fairy must be. The fairy beans, the elixir, as well as the wish-fulfilling stick, somersault cloud, etc., almost all kinds of treasures are sent out habit. But so far, many places have been figured out. After the immortal turtle got the elixir of life, it must have been divided equally with the immortal Hexian. At that time, the immortal Gui and immortal Hexian had not fallen out. The two brothers and sisters each shared 2, and the immortal Gui kept one for himself and the other. One was given to his sister, the divination mother-in-law, and the Hexianrin also gave one of them to Tao Beibai. Therefore, the turtle fairy, the crane fairy, the divination mother-in-law, and the Tao Beibai each have 1, and the 4 people will live for so many years. "Immortal Kylan, how did you make this elixir of life?" Mu Yang asked. Seeing that Mayang was very interested in the elixir, Immortal Mao continued, "Although this elixir can prolong life, it looks very attractive, but it has a great flaw. I have taken the elixir. After that, the potential of the body will be exhausted and the strength will basically be difficult to improve." "Mayang, you are still young and your potential is very good. There is no need to think about it, and even if you want it, I don't have it here. After all, the elixir of immortality is prepared for immortals and the level is not high." The cat immortal hopes that Mayang can focus on martial arts and maybe he can reach a higher level in the future. Mu Yang couldn't help nodding after hearing this and had some understanding of the efficacy of the elixir of life. Similar to the effect of supernatural water squeezing the potential to obtain powerful power, the elixir of life is to use up the potential power in the body in exchange for a long lifespan. After taking the elixir of life, it does not mean that the power can never grow again, it is just relative to the previous one, to become difficult. Based on this, it is estimated that the Gixianren and the others should not take the elixir on the spot, but wait until the body begins to age. For Immortal Cat's advice, Mu Yang also took it to heart. He smiled and said, "Immortal Kylan is right, these are not what I want to consider." Before the acceleration space was opened, Mayang might still covet the efficacy of the elixir of life, but with the acceleration space in front of him there are more promising prospects, and he will only choose sesame when he is confused, lost the watermelon thing. Seeing that Mayang didn't ask about the elixir of life, the cat fairy nodded with a hint of admiration in his eyes. He told the other party about the elixir of life so bluntly. It would be impossible to say that there is no temptation. After all, immortality is something that many people dream of and want to achieve. If you want to go to the temple, you must first pass the approval of the cat fairy. When the cat fairy recommends candidates, the most important thing is that the other party must have a strong will and be able to withstand all kinds of temptations. Otherwise, if the recommended person can't stand the temptation, only bad things. At the beginning, the turtle immortal lost the opportunity to go to the temple because he did not resist the temptation of the elixir. Keeping Mayang's performance in mind, Immortal Cat only waited for the opponent's strength to meet his own requirements, and then recommended him to enter the heaven. "Oh yes, although I promise you that I will recommend you to go to a more advanced place in the future, there is one thing I think you need to pay attention to." "The cat fairy, please speak." Immortal Mao coughed lightly and said, "It seems that your strength has grown a little faster recently. This is not necessarily a bad thing, but it is not entirely a good thing. I suggest that you can slow down and first grasp the existing strength. Don't be in a hurry to break through." In the eyes of the cat fairy, the growth of strength is a good thing, but if the growth is too fast, it will become vain in general. For the cat fairy who is obsessed with grasping every breath of the body, it must be pointed out. Mayang was silent for a while. He believed in the eyesight of Immortal Cat. Of course, the reason why Immortal Mao said this was more due to the concept of martial arts, but after thinking about it, he finally accepted Immortal Mao's suggestion. "I understand, I will stabilize the foundation in the near future." His family knew his own affairs, and since breaking the first limit of 100 combat power, Mayang felt like his body had opened the gate, and he basically didn't encounter a bottleneck in his cultivation. Earth's martial arts concept is not necessarily so brilliant in the universe, it is determined by the level. For example, the martial arts of the Earth are definitely not as brilliant as the gods, and the gods are not as knowledgeable as the realm kings. This is because of their different positions and standing tall. It is always right to see far. However, after a long period of exploration, the martial arts of the Earth also have their own uniqueness, such as the meticulous mastery of power at the low level, which is very worthy of recognition. This kind of control can allow practitioners to break out more powerful combat power when encountering a crisis. Anyway, he won't touch the bottleneck for a while, and there are no enemies on Earth that need to be vigilant for the time being. Mayang decided to follow the fine tradition of Earth martial arts, slow down for a while, and then master his own strength. Once it is fully grasped, it may be extended in the future, which may have unexpected effects. Yes, that's how it should be. The foundation is very important. Immortal Mao was in a good mood, and there is nothing more happier than meeting someone who can listen to his persuasion. "Immortal Kylan, it's not early, it's time for me to leave. I hope I can meet your requirements next time we meet." "Cultivation, well, I am very optimistic about you." Immortal Cat stood up, suddenly remembered something, and said, "By the way, I have a kind of golden cloud here that can be used for walking. Do you want me to give you one?" The cat immortal wanted to give it to Mayang. It was the cloud of somersaults. Only those with a pure heart and no evil thoughts could sit on it. At that time, Immortal Turtle couldn't sit up on her own, but she shamelessly took one of them. Mu Yang knew the characteristics of somersaulting clouds, so he quickly waved his hand and declined. "No need, I think air dance is more important than external objects, and it is also a kind of cultivation without external force." In fact, what is more important is that he thinks that it is useless to get it, and he may not be able to sit on it. If the cat fairy finds out, his personality will collapse. "Kalen Immortal, I'm leaving." After speaking, Mu Yang jumped from the top of the Kalen Tower, and in the fog-like white clouds, Mu Yang's figure gradually disappeared and left Kalen Tower. What a good young man who is dedicated to cultivation. Looking at the blue sky, only the white clouds are floating below. There is no comparison, and I don't know the difference. Compared with Mayang, the original turtle fairy was just a stubborn rock, and he was shameless and vulgar, and the cat fairy was silent. What did I do back then? Did you give him the wish-fulfilling stick and the elixir? Shaking his head, remembering the large amount of seafood that Mayang had reserved for him, the cat fairy turned around leisurely. On the ocean thousands of kilometers away from Kalin Tower, the blue waters are magnificent and the waves are surging under the blowing of the wind. At this time, there is a merchant ship sailing on this vast ocean. The small cabin swayed continuously with the waves. In the dark light, April curled up in a corner with her beloved sugar bowl. The clothes on her body were wrinkled and had lost their luster. There is also her little old school bag. Well, it's so sweet, so delicious. April pecked her fingers with a pitiful smile on her face, eating something delicious in her dream. On the other hand, after leaving the headquarters of the Ophiuchus Legion, Chief Lusha mobilized all his horses overnight, and then started a carpet-like search centered on the original island, vowing to find the information of Claren's daughter and the blueprint. In the command hall, Lu Sha was biting a cigarette on his mouth, staring at a map of the sea area on the wall, constantly making marks toward it, and it could be seen that several nearby islands were marked with red crosses. Boss, we've searched for more than a dozen islands, but we still haven't found any trace of that little girl. Do you think she's not on the island at all? The younger brother moved his throat and whispered. Have the residents of the island been interrogated? Lu Sha fixed his hand holding the pen, turned his head and asked fiercely. The younger brother replied, I have asked but I haven't found anything. With a slap, Lu Sha put the cigarette still on the ground, stepped on both feet and shouted. Didn't someone see Claren running away with his daughter before? What are you going to do? Continue to send more people, expand the scope and look for them one by one? I don't believe they can't find them. Yes, yes, hearing the eldest roar, the younger brother's face turned pale and he was so frightened that he stumbled out quickly. Bastard, where is that little girl hiding? Lu Sha was in a very bad mood. If he didn't find the design drawings as soon as possible, Commander Win of the headquarters would never let him go, thinking of the bloodthirsty Commander Win. Looking at his eyes, Lu Sha couldn't help shivering. No, more severe means must be used, otherwise Lao Tzu will really be finished. The strong desire to survive urged Lu Sha to change his means in a hurry. Time passed quietly, and in the blink of an eye, more than 2 months have passed since Mayang left Kalin Tower. During this period of time, Mayang stopped and walked around the earth, cultivating in the way he knew, and at the same time combining the knowledge taught by Tianxin Liu and Cat Immortal, and constantly improving his martial arts. This aspect is not simply to use fists and feet, but more to carry out theoretical research. As he continued to verify the concepts of the two martial arts, Mu Yang was surprised to find that a large part of the martial arts of Tianxin Liu and Kalenta overlapped with each other. Although the two are different, they can be integrated in the general direction, and their founding concepts are surprisingly consistent. Tianxin Liu martial arts focuses on nurturing the body with vitality, using the body as the foundation to exert combat power, and then achieve the purpose of controlling and utilizing every trace of qi. The behavior of the body, pay attention to the control of the body and reduce redundant movements. At first glance, the two are unrelated and even contradict each other in some places. For example, Tianxin Liu emphasizes the role of the body in the process of luck, while Kalenta martial arts emphasizes the withdrawal of the body. However, if you study carefully, you will find that the two intersect. The parts are completely the same and they are all as efficient as possible, while the rest just complement each other. This is strange. Although there have been rumors that Kalin Tower is the birthplace of all martial arts on Earth, Tianxin Liu martial arts are obviously not born out of the former, they should exist side by side. Mayang realized the similarities from the two, but he couldn't understand why this happened. These are obviously two systems which should have been developed according to their respective cultivation trees, but he vaguely felt that Tianxin Liu was like internal energy. Kalenta is like an external force, each has its own strengths, and the combination of the two is a truly powerful martial arts concept. At this time, he deeply realized the disadvantage of lack of knowledge. If his vision was a little higher, what he encountered in front of him might not be a problem. This question can't be answered now, maybe it can only be solved after entering the temple to practice. He shook his head and said to himself in his heart, people without farsightedness will have near-term worries. If you think about it, you will have more opportunities. It is true that there is a temple above the Kalen Tower. There is a more advanced martial arts, but that is temporarily unavailable to Mayang, so he needs to think for himself. He was troubled by this problem along the way, and when he regained his senses, he had unknowingly arrived on a vast ocean. Puffy. Several large fish jumped out of the sea, and with a slap they drilled back again, splashing a large piece of fine waves. Looking at the vast and boundless ocean, Mu Yang's mood actually relaxed a lot. This ocean is a good place to live in peace. Mu Yang smiled slightly, looking from a distance. He could see the looming boats casting their nets there to catch fish. In this era, being able to drive a fishing boat out to fish is already very advanced. It is only a few hundred kilometers away from Daqing Mountain. But except for the last time he participated in the world's #1 martial arts meeting and crossed a sea area, Mayang has not really experienced the vastness of the ocean. Now that he is here, he will have a good feeling. So Mayang stopped stopping and flew straight towards an island that looked good. In the face of the rolling waves of the sea, the vast and majestic energy always makes people humble. An island by the sea. The environment here is beautiful, the air is pleasant, and the small islands are densely covered with many small hills. Originally, this place was a paradise-like scene, but the brutal behavior at this moment broke the tranquility here. A group of men in uniform drove a yacht to the island and then entered the residential area. Suddenly, there was a scene of chicken flying and dogs jumping on the island. Every time this group of people came, it was a disaster for the people on the island. Boom! Someone violently kicked open the door of a house, then looked around and shouted rudely to a farmer couple inside, "Hey, it's time to pay this month's offerings." "Master, can you give me a few days? We really can't bring anything here," the farmer man wearing a farm hat begged. "Bah, how can I explain to the leaders if you don't pay? Be honest, hand over your valuables," the officer spit, but seeing that the other party really couldn't get the money, he could only fight badly. Broken bowls and chopsticks and took some items from the house that looked like they were worth some money. Such a scene was staged in every household. The old man on the island could not stand to argue but was beaten to the ground by the other party. Ouch! Old Bones better be honest, we are not bandits. As long as we follow our rules honestly, I promise not to hurt you. The laws of the kingdom won't let you go. The old man was so angry that he almost vomited blood. Although these sanctimonious guys were not bandits, what they did was different from bandits. However, the other party had guns in their hands and these villagers were powerless to resist. "Hey, the laws of the United Kingdom don't work in the territory of our Ophiuchus Legion." The officer of the Ophiuchus Legion sneered, with a mocking look on his face. The United Kingdom has its own law enforcement agency, but the world is too big and many places are dominated by local snakes, and the power of the United Kingdom is beyond the reach of the United Kingdom. The Ophiuchus Legion is the biggest resistance force. In the place it occupies, the laws of the kingdom are just a few scraps of paper without any effect. Bastard, the residents of the island looked at the arrogant face of the Ophiuchus Legion, and they were all furious. "I'm fighting with you?" Seeing that their food was taken away by them, the old man shouted angrily, clenching his weak fists and attacking the opponent. "HMPH, shame on your face." Seeing that the old man dared to resist, the officers of the Ophiuchus Legion immediately turned gloomy, really tired of living. With a wink, the soldier next to him immediately strode forward, threw the old man away, put his musket at the old man and was about to shoot. "Stop it," the villagers shouted in disgust. "Don't shoot." Pong! A half-inch long fire snake shot out of the barrel and everyone couldn't bear to close their eyes, but after a long time the screams did not sound. They opened their eyes but saw a tall and straight man standing in front of the old man. The man had black hair and sharp eyes, stabbing into everyone's heart like a knife. At this moment, he put one hand on the shoulder of the old man and the other hand stretched forward, holding something in his hand. Dingling, when the metal fell to the ground, a crisp sound sounded. It was actually a scalding bullet, and at this moment, the surface of the bullet was still smoking with traces of blue smoke. Bullet. Taken by hand. Everyone's eyes widened, they couldn't believe it. How could human strength grab the bullets fired from the gun with bare hands? Old man, are you all right? A warm voice sounded, and Mu Yang calmly looked at the old man beside him. No, it's fine, thank you. The old man was in a state of shock, still not sure what was going on. This is impossible. The member of the Ophiuchus Corps who fired the shot shouted in disbelief, and while panicking, he fired several shots at Mayang in a row. Tuck tuck tuck, the sound of intense gunshots and sections of fire snakes spewed out. I thought this would definitely kill the opponent, but his pride did not last long and his expression soon became more panic. Because after he fired a series of bullets, the man on the opposite side was actually calm and didn't pay attention to his shooting at all. The man stretched out his hand and flicked his palm a few times in midair. All the bullets were blocked. Jingle, the crisp sound of a dozen bullets hitting the hearts of everyone in the Ophiuchus Legion. Monster, I don't know who shouted first, and the atmosphere of fear suddenly spread among the soldiers of the Ophiuchus Legion. Everyone opened fire and killed him. In the panic, the people on the side of the Ophiuchus Legion sternly yelling, they set up muskets in a hurry and fired at Mayang. Core death. Suddenly, Mu Yang's body moved, and with a bang, countless phantoms flashed like ghosts, shuttled among the soldiers of the Ophiuchus Legion, followed by a crackling sound. In just a few seconds, all the members of the Ophiuchus Legion fell down. Life has been lost. All dead, the residents of the island stared at the scene in disbelief. It is indeed dead, and those bastards have their retribution, others shouted in relief. At this time, the older man remembered the legend he had heard before, and he came to Mu Yang tremblingly. Could it be? Are you a legendary martial artist? Mayang nodded and admitted, yes, I am a martial arts practitioner. Ah, it is rumored that martial Taoist has a power that is unattainable for ordinary people. It is true. The old man was a little choked with excitement. Old man, who are these people and why are they making a fortune on the island? Mu Yang asked with a frown. As far as he knew, the Earth today has already entered the period of the United Kingdom's governance, so it shouldn't be so disorderly. The old man sighed and said, alas, they are from the Ophiuchus Legion. This Ophiuchus Legion is a very domineering armed organization. They rule over a large area nearby and they dominate it, even the military power of the United Kingdom, and cannot contain them. After the old man said this, Mu Yang almost knew the nature of the Snake Man army. It should be similar to the Red Ribbon Legion in the original book, which is the remaining armed organization under the rule of the United Kingdom. The Earth is so big that although it is already under the control of the United Kingdom in name, there are actually many places that the United Kingdom cannot govern. It's just that compared to the Red Ribbon Legion in later generations, the current Ophiuchus Legion is obviously more arrogant. If the Red Ribbon Legion is a private armed group hidden under the governance of the United Kingdom, then the Ophiuchus Legion is more like a separate place. The armed forces have their own dominance. Heck, it looks like there's something wrong with the governance of the United Kingdom. Old man, what are you going to do next? Mu Yang looked at the corpses on the ground and suddenly had a headache. In the past, the people on the island could live under the rule of the Ophiuchus Legion, but now these guys were killed on the island by themselves, which meant that Shuangfang had no room for relaxation. Hey, this day can't be over, the old man sighed and shook his head. Actually, we thought about leaving here, but we were still a little reluctant. It's just that something like this happened today. Even if we don't want to, there's nothing we can do. Mayang nodded, although he was somewhat sympathetic to the experience of the old man and the residents of the island, but he did not feel guilty for killing the people of the Ophiuchus Legion. In this matter, he has no guilt in all fairness. I didn't kill Borin, but Borin died because of me is a bit nonsense in his opinion. He just did something at a coincidental time. It's just a matter of time to think it's right. Fortunately, the residents of the island are not white-eyed wolves, and they did not blame Mayang for killing the people of the Ophiuchus Legion for the cause of his uprooting. Maybe they already had the idea of leaving here. In the following time, the residents of the island began to pack their bags and prepare to leave their hometown. while Mayang got a lot of information about the Ophiuchus Legion from the old man and jumped up to say goodbye to them.
Eh?
Bang, 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 April struggled with her school bag on her back, and her thin body was walking on a path full of stones. As she went deeper and deeper, the surrounding vegetation gradually became sparse. April stared blankly at the road under her feet. At this moment, she came back to her senses and seemed to have lost her way. Looking around, the surrounding colors have turned khaki and she has entered a vast and flat plain area. I seem to have gone to the wrong place. April shrank, her brown hair stuck to her face, which had become very messy because she hadn't washed it. 2 months ago, she secretly boarded a merchant ship and entered the mainland. After disembarking from the merchant ship, April searched for the vague memory in her mind to prepare to go home, but the memory of a 5-year-old girl was not accurate, so she went more and more. Now I don't even know where I am.
Roar.
There was a roar of a beast in the distance, and then I saw a rolling yellow sand speeding across the plain. After a while, a light blue dinosaur appeared in sight chasing an antelope. The dinosaur was about 2 meters away, tall, dark eyes like light bulbs. As the distance got closer, the blue dinosaur saw April, gave up its prey for some reason, and ran towards April instead. Bang, 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 the dinosaur got closer and closer, and the ground began to vibrate with its footsteps. April hugged her head in fear and fell to the ground with her buttocks, her eyes immediately filled with tears. Ooh, it's terrible, don't eat me. The blue dinosaur was close at hand, and April could even feel the heat exhaling from the opponent's nose. But after a while, April didn't feel any pain, opened her eyes, and met the dark bulb-like eyes of dinosaurs. This is a blue dinosaur that looks very young. It has a big head close to April, black horns on the top of its head and on both sides of its jaws shining in the sun, and its belly is very fat and covered with the white scales. The pair of small wings on the back fluttered, and they did not fly but instead raised a choking dust. Squeak, caw, the blue young dragon tilted his head and called towards AI, leaning towards Prior, but his eyes were aimed at the sugar bowl in April's arms. Do you want to eat honey? April reacted, opening the lid of the sugar jar tremblingly and handing it over. Hey tilde tilde, the blue baby dragon stretched out its tongue and licked it, making a cheerful cry. The childlike April seemed to have forgotten her fear at this moment. She happily raised the honey pot and continued to feed her honey. You like it too? These sweet honeys are the best, you can try it again. For children, they like to share their happiness the most. As long as they have common interests, they can quickly become good friends. Ow, little blue dragon licked April's fingers and then licked towards her cheek. Hee, stop licking, can you leave with me? I can't find the way back. Zio Lanlong called out, looking like he didn't understand.
Eh?